Okay. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Howell Township Mayor and Council's workshop and regular agenda meeting. It is July 25th. It is shortly after 6:30 p.m. I would ask Ms. Woolman if you would kindly read the opening statement and then call the roll.
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this workshop/regular meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on December 21, 2005. By the faxing of a copy of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for publication on December 21, 2005. By the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on December 21, 2005. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with 3 emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room to the rear, they are to your immediate left and immediate right, and at the front of the meeting room at the left of the dais. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcasts on Howell Township TV 77. Roll call, Mr. Malavey.
I'm here.
Mrs. Showmaker will not be in attendance at tonight's meeting. Mr. Tabasco.
Present.
Mr. Walsh will also not be present at tonight's meeting. Mayor DeBella.
Here. Okay, we'll come back and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I do believe we have reason to go into closed session. Is that right?
We do, but
do.
the solicitor's running a few minutes late. He called. He was stuck in traffic.
All right, so we can't do the executive. Are there any items that are of a non-litigious nature that we could go through?
There are just a few small items I'd like to cover. Don't require the attorney.
Okay, so I would ask that we please read the necessary statement to go into closed session.
Whereas Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 13 of the New Jersey Revised Statutes require that the public shall not be excluded from any meetings of a public body unless a resolution authorizing such exclusion is adopted at a public meeting. Whereas the Township Council of the Township of Howell has determined that such a closed meeting is required to discuss certain matters which are exempted from consideration with the public in attendance under New Jersey Revised Statutes 10:4-12. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Howell that the public shall be excluded from the next portion of this meeting, and that the Township Council will reconvene in public session thereafter. Be it further resolved that minutes will be kept of the meeting in closed session, and the time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public cannot be determined at this time.
Okay, we need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any remarks? Okay, hearing none, roll call for executive, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Aye.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we shall return from executive session at or about 8 p.m. We'll be adjourned until then. Reconvening from executive session. Let the record reflect that Councilman Walsh and Councilwoman Showmaker are excused tonight. Both were unable to be here. The time is 8 p.m., and we're going to begin with our regular portion of the meeting. I'd ask that everyone please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would ask that everyone please remain standing just for a moment of silent thought and observation for the troops defending this country. Let us also just take a moment and hope that there will be a peaceful settlement to all the unrest in the Middle East. Thank you. Let's just quickly dispense with the acceptance of the minutes of previous meetings. I'd ask for a motion and a second, please, on the May 2, 3, and June 20 budget and public.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any remarks on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we have an announcement to make tonight. One of the things that we have begun to do is when there is a major personnel announcement to take place, we like to do it in these chambers and introduce the change in the management team to the community at large. So without taking any further ado from our Chief Executive Officer, I'll turn it over to Mr. Tom Czerniewski, the Township Manager.
Hello?
Here you
It's
go.
on now.
Okay, Mayor, when I started approximately 4.5 months ago, the township was in the middle of concluding an extensive efficiency management report. And in that report, there was a call for a deputy township manager. At the same time, the governing body was struggling with adoption of a budget and realizing the need to fill this position, as the professionals represented we should. Council then moved to take advantage of various opportunities, such as canceling some professional contracts and allowing me to consolidate a number of different operations in order to meet that goal. And I'm here tonight to announce that I've done that. Mayor, after reviewing 39 resumes, conducting 6 extensive interviews, we're ready to announce our next deputy township manager. Before I announce the individual's name, I want to make it clear what some of the characteristics and traits were that I valued. First and foremost, there needed to be a demonstrated knowledge and commitment to the historic principles behind the council manager form of government and the whole reform movement that led to that. And that's well encapsulated in the ICMA, which stands for the International City and County Management Association's Code of Conduct and Ethics. That, for those who are interested, that's www.icma.org, and it's a great reading, and it sort of paints a path of where I see our organization heading. I needed someone with experience in local government and a demonstrated record of success and ability to step in from the manager when needed. I was looking for an individual with graduate-level school credentials. I was looking for someone with the ability to pursue grants and other recognitions for our community. I was looking for someone who I felt would care for and embrace our community, meaning the residents and their concerns, and work to develop our municipal government organization. After looking far and wide, I realized that I only needed to look within my own organization. It's my pleasure to announce that I am appointing Ms. Helene Schlegel, our Director of Parks and Recreation, to the position of Deputy Township Manager. Just to give you a little bit of background, Ms. Schlegel was hired part-time in 1987, went full-time in 1995. She was promoted to director in 1998. She has supervised a workforce of 27 full-time and 150 part-time employees among various divisions, including Parks and Recreation and Buildings and Grounds. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Georgian Court College, a Master's in Science in Parks and Resource Management from Slippery Rock University, and she's obtained a New Jersey Certified Public Manager's Certificate from Fairleigh Dickinson University. In the short time that I've been here, her department has obtained for our community and our organization some outstanding recognitions, including the New Jersey Recreation and Parks Association's Award for Excellence in Therapeutic and Wellness Programming, as well as the 2006 Monmouth County Victor E. Grossinger Award for Innovative Environmental Programming. Helene, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I look forward to serving the township in this new capacity and to support and work with Mr. Chernetsky and the entire management team in achieving their goals and objectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members of the council have any comments?
Yeah, I do have some comments about this. I've had the distinct honor and pleasure of working with Helene, perhaps longer than most of the rest of us on this council, starting back when I spent a number of years on the Recreation Advisory Board. And knowing Helene's character traits and principles, I can't tell you how pleased I am that Tom actually made this choice. There's actually other reasons why I'm very enthused about this, too. Excuse me. We, as you know, as a council, are we're the policy board. We set policies, and we look for the township to then enable those policies on a day-to-day basis. And every time we can step up in the hiring that does go on within the town, we've always said, do step up. So hearing what Tom just said about the extensive search that he just did, and the end result being he actually pulled somebody from within, is a great message to the rest of the people that already work in this township, that if you do perform, you will be considered, and in fact maybe move up at times when there are opportunities to do so. So that also throws me quite a bit, because we have said as a policy that we're a customer service business. We want delighted customers, and that means the town's taxpayers, first of all, but also for us, the other customers that we deal with are the people that work in this town. So this is a very good morale boost, too, in the choice that you did make. So I'm very, very thrilled with the choice for two reasons.
Mr. Malati, any remarks?
Just that I think Pete pretty much touched on everything. I have the pleasure of working with Helene also, and I tell you, no finer person to deal with. She's very professional. Her work ethic, it's outstanding, which is something I admire in her. She's loyal to the people. And it's going to be a win-win situation for the township. I think we're all going to benefit from this for years to come. And I want to also commend Mr. Chernecki for the fine job that he did in selecting Ms. Schlegel, because I don't know the other candidates that were interviewed, but I do know Mrs. Schlegel a little bit, and what I know about her, it's all positive. So I'm very pleased. And also I want to thank Mr. C, because he's been able to pull this off really without increasing any payroll monies, if you know what I mean. This is actually a cost neutral to the township. Actually, in the long run, I think it's going to save us some money. He's been able to do that to his credit, and I want to thank him for that. So I'm looking forward to handing the notes to Ms. Schlegel. Welcome aboard.
Actually, I do have one more comment, which actually goes out as a compliment to Bruce Davis, a person who was taxed and tasked to fulfill what we thought was 2 roles, but when you look at the people in place now, it actually turned out to be 3. So,
right.
Bruce, thank you for your hard efforts over all the years, because now there's actually 3 people in place to do what you were doing before as one person.
The only comment, a couple thoughts, is it's often said that behind every good woman there's a good man, and I want to congratulate Mr. Schlegel. I know he's a very supporting spouse, and Mrs. Schlegel puts in a lot of time, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends because of her recreational duties, and he's a fine gentleman, and they're residents of our community as well. So I thank you for allowing us to take up so much of her time. We certainly understand the sacrifices that she has often made. And I think this is a great story about someone who came to work here in 1987 on a part-time basis and has been able to work their way up through the organization and went back to school and got all kinds of tremendous credentials that have really benefited this community. Ms. Schlegel, for those who have not had an opportunity to work with her, is a consummate professional. She's organized, she's got high integrity, and she's a real classy individual. And I think it's a great testimony that she lives in our town, she's risen through the ranks of this organization, and she's in a very influential leadership position now. And we're delighted to have you on board, Mrs. Schlegel. Kudos again to Mr. Chernecki. I can tell you, folks, in the 4 months he's been here, he has truly made a very distinguishable difference. And the process that he used to select Ms. Schlegel was authentic and was above reproach. And I'm delighted to know that we have people, as we know we do, like Ms. Schlegel, who outlasted any of the other best-in-class competition that came to this town to try and get that job. So congratulations, and we're excited to have you on board. Good luck to you.
Mayor, one more related topic to this. Ms. Schlegel is going to start on Monday as under her new title, and in her taking over at Recreation as the acting Parks and Recreation Director will be Mr. Stephen Fetcher, and we will then start, again, a competitive search to fill that position.
Terrific.
Great.
All right, on the reports of township officials, Mr. Chernecki, we'll start with you, sir. What do you have for us?
Just a few minor items. We are trying to make strides with respect to our website, and we've launched the Q-Poll service, where we actually start polling residents on questions. And we just did, a sort of beta test on the issue of limiting collections of trash haulers, which is on for discussion. Now, there's some kinks we have to work out. For example, one person voted 74 times. And what we found was happening was that there was a pie chart that showed the progress of voting. So we're going to change that so, one, you can't see the progress of voting, and then it was supposed to throw out any duplicate votes, and it didn't do that. But it was just a beta test, and we're going to try making better use of that particular aspect of our new website. We're proceeding with the Memorial Drive project. We're communicating with the residents. There's a number of complaints about, safety and start times and things like that, but the project is progressing along.
That's the road for everybody's benefit out there. That's the road for the development that we took over from Howell Township.
That's correct.
Right. Hidden View, I think it is.
Correct. A few months ago, we launched a meter service at our Aldrich Road Park and Ride, and that meter service is working well. However, what we've done is we painted approximately 187 marked parking spots. So you would go up to the meter and put in your parking spot, but we're finding at this point that the average usage doesn't exceed 50. So what we're going to be doing is painting over a bank of those parking spots so they're available for people who don't need to pay in the meter, because that creates costs for us in terms of policing in the interim. But that program's working well. We may be coming to you with recommendations for enhancing that. And then finally, Ms. Schlegel, maybe you can, I forgot to mark the date, but the Freewood Acres Park Project, in terms of presenting the Recreation Committee and the people who participated. Would you?
August 16th, we'll be inviting back the people who have participated in our first meeting in the park plan. We actually have a concept plan now that we're going to present to the citizens, and that will be August 16th at 6:30 p.m. in the main meeting.
That's just so, if you did not hear that in the recording there, Helene just said it's August 16th at 6:30. Where now?
In the main meeting room.
Right in this room.
Right here.
Okay. And that's for the Freewood Acres Park. The people that participated the first time, please come on back.
Right, and what we did was we invited the neighborhood to come out. We gave them what was called a photo survey, where it was sort of like a focus group on park planning, and then a mapping exercise. And we've taken all that information. We're ready to present it back to those who participated and ask, did we get it right, and make improvements from there. And then we'll be in a position to start specifications and going out to bid on the various aspects of the project.
Good.
Anything else, Mr. Trunias?
That's it, sir.
All right, Mr. Gannon, under legal reports, would you give sort of an at-large update on the status of the Freehold Regional High School situation and our challenge to the redistricting, and also anything on the Parkway Water update?
Mayor, with regard to Freehold Regional, we're in the motion stage. Freehold Regional filed some motions. We responded. The court hasn't set a date yet for hearing those motions. They deal with procedural issues with regard to standing and the timeliness of the petition, which I believe will be able to survive those. And then the court will set down a date for hearings on the attendance plan and also the underlying policy, which is the gravamen of our petition to the commissioner. So that's proceeding along, not as quickly as we wanted to, but oftentimes administrative hearings get bogged down, and there was motions made by Freehold Regional that we've responded to. They asked then for some additional time to respond, and so I anticipate a hearing will be held soon when the judge does give us a scheduling order. Parkway Water, we, in conjunction with the ratepayer advocate, had filed on behalf of the township and its residents served by Parkway Water an objection to the decision of the initial decision of the administrative law judge with regard to the rate increase, indicating that a number of facts and some other data were not properly considered. The ratepayer advocate is also challenging the court, the judge's initial decision. which will ultimately be reviewed by the BPU, who will make a decision based on all the information, including the judges. So we're also keeping in contact at all times with the ratepayer advocate so that our position is solidified with them. So hopefully the BPU will do the right thing.
All right, please, as you have continued to keep us posted. Anything else under reports of officials? Nothing. Okay. Mr. Tabasco, Deputy Mayor, we'll start with you under reports from council members.
I do have about 4 things to speak about tonight. The first one, you may all notice that we're actually sitting up front tonight, and having 2 council members absent presented us with this opportunity to create a slightly more cozy environment. So I did ask the mayor and my fellow council person Juan over there if they would agree to have us move up, and that's why you see us sitting here today. You know, we've been trying to do things that would ensure that there's civility and decorum and dignity and respect in this chamber, and I think by maybe presenting a cozier environment, that could actually happen and succeed pretty well. One other thing also, obviously, is that we do record this for broadcast, so when we review this broadcast at some point, we need to judge as to whether this actually was a better broadcast type package than sitting in the back. And in fact, if it does present itself better, maybe we'll have 2 of us back there and 3 up front and keep it that way. You know, we'll discuss that a little bit. But that's why you see us here up front today. I had asked to maybe make a cozier environment tonight, and my fellow council members agreed to it. So that's why you see us here. Number 2, I started speaking about this last meeting when Chuck and Tom were working together on the community design standard presentation, and just admiring them like a proud papa as to how they were working together. Now tonight we're seeing another person who is taking over the deputy manager role, and we've had 4.5 months working with Tom right now where things are really going well. We do, and people may have forgotten this, but we do have the possibility for the change in the form of government coming up. And I didn't like that coming up in the first place, and I even dislike it more now because I think things are working really well. We have the right people in place. So at some point, as we get closer to whenever the time period would be that we'd have to actually put something on the ballot for people to vote on, I'm not sure if we should actually go forward with that, because I would want to let this continue to see how it works, but it may be too late. But I actually think with the right people that we do have in place now, that the form of government we have right now is the best one and is working really well. So you all can comment about that as we continue, but I just wanted to get that out. I think Tom is exceptional. I know Helena Reddy is exceptional. I know with the personnel moves that have been made, we had the new new manager, of the DPW came last week. I just think we should let that all try to work itself through first before we do something drastic and actually the things we put in place would disappear. It doesn't make sense. The next thing I want to talk about is the EDC, the Economic Development Committee. I attended as the liaison last night, their monthly meeting, and we actually met for a good period of time, but we had some takeaways, Tom, that I think you should know about as well. They were asking for some of the following, just so when we do try to entertain entities that want to come to town, it's a lot easier to do. They were asking for a hotline that people can call and that somebody would actually monitor and be able to respond quickly enough, where they would have a mailbox somewhere, a voicemail mailbox of some kind by telephony means. They were asking for a website that would actually alarm whoever the person would be that they designate to be the person that would respond. They do have a $5K budget now, but they also asked me as a council person to maybe consider upping that somehow. We'll talk about that next year, I guess. They want to start going back to creating agendas and maybe having you put some input into that, Tom. And they definitely invited you to come to the next meeting to discuss some of the things we're going to be discussing, such as the community design standards tonight. And a lot of the members of that EDC are actually chamber members in town that own and run businesses. So they felt that we really do need to value their input, which is a good comment. It was very active for about 4 or 5 years, and then over the course of the last year kind of went dormant a little bit because we needed the master plan to get moved forward before we can actually discuss other things. But we're at the point now where that's actually going to be forwarded and completed soon. So a lot of things that will come out of that after that will know the zoning. They'll be able to contribute a lot. We used to in the past have the EDC members actually go out and go see other sites in New Jersey or wherever else when things came to town as wanting to come here just to see. So they're very welcoming to that idea again, where some of them would actually travel and do some of those things. So as takeaways tonight, though, to be very specific, they wanted to ask about having a hotline, having the website have an alarm to it, increase the budget maybe, which we can discuss on another time, and have Tom come and also start creating agendas. There was a couple things we did as a council. We created an inventory of available lots at one point. I think, Bill, you have all the information on that. But in addition to wanting that inventory, what they also suggested is that any time a business comes to town, they should know about it. And that raised a red flag in my head, because I don't know if the rest of the council members know, but I definitely don't know when every single business comes to town and actually expresses an interest. So if somebody's actually maintaining that record somehow, and I guess it might be through the zoning or planning boards, we should know about it all the way up to the council level, let it percolate up from wherever that information is first going to the EDC and then up to us. It's a shame sometimes that we're losing stuff and not even knowing that we're here looking at it.
Yeah. May I just ask the hotline with respect to business problems? Is that what we're talking about, or potential?
Or just if they, somebody's in, an out-of-state entity, let's say, and they hit our website and want to call, and they call, that there should be a voicemail box that's actually monitored by somebody, and an alarm goes off, and somebody pings out to that entity.
For business attraction.
For business attraction, for marketing purposes.
Okay.
That was the main reason for that.
Actually, what I found that the Fire Bureau maintains the most accurate listing of existing businesses, so that may be the vehicle we use.
Okay. As a last comment for tonight, I know that at least one of our council members is traveling, and I know that many Howell residents are traveling through the summer here. And in fact, I know some other family members of other council people will be traveling soon. So I just want to, give best wishes to those that are traveling this summer. They may do so safely and with peace. So everybody enjoy the rest of their summer and peacefully travel and safely travel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Malave, remarks, comments to report?
Just very quick, Mr. Mayor. Recently, we were awarded Howard Township was awarded the 11th safest township to live in the nation.
Absolutely.
And that's something that we should all be proud of. I am pleased that this happened during my tenure here as a council member. Before this ends for me this December, as you guys know, I was not seeking re-election. So I'm very pleased with that. But this is solely a tribute to our Chief Carl and the entire fine police department that we have in this township. I think they're second second to none. They're just a terrific department, and I want to congratulate them on the job well done. And also I want to congratulate you guys, the citizens of this community, because obviously we're doing something right. We are attracting quality families to move into town, and we are keeping an eye on our kids and so forth, so as parents. So it's something that we should all really be happy and proud of. On a personal note, I've been out for several weeks, and I'm back. I'm feeling good. I want to thank, publicly want to thank a lot of the people that called me and sent best wishes. I'm feeling fine. It takes a lot to knock me out completely, so I'm bouncing back slowly but surely. And I just want to publicly thank all those who have reached out to me and were concerns. It really means a lot to me and my family that you reached out to me. So, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Malave. It's good to have you back. I have a couple of issues, Mr. Chernetsky. I'll probably direct most of these to you. The Ramtown Fire Company has been in the midst of creating a revenue-generating opportunity for themselves by acquiring a piece of property, and they're going through the zoning board process of having a tower constructed so they can raise revenue for the ratepayers of that fire district. It's a terrific plan, obviously, and we're in the business of doing it ourselves. They have encountered just a whole bunch of red tape issues that I think are part and parcel to the process of going through these. And in fact, their chief is here, most distinguished chief, a real honorable person for his civic duties, William Gatto. And the chief has called me just as an aside to keep me abreast of certain things, and he's done so really just as an emissary of Ramtown Fire Company. But I've been made aware on a very positive note that there have been some delays and some red tape, and oftentimes this causes the fire service, in this case, to lose a lot of time. They sort of go back to square one and another 45 days, and they go back to the bottom of the pile. And there is an issue, and there's no value in working the issue here tonight, but there was some outstanding issue that Mr. Mallon, who I believe is the zoning board's planner, I believe he's the planner, was working on it, and it's not to interfere in the zoning board's process. Apparently, it was a technicality that could set them back potentially to go to the bottom of the pile again for another 45 days. And I'm going to ask that we please, if it means that we have to reprioritize, we've got to get this fire company fast-tracked as it relates to getting this review back to the top of the pile. And I would ask that we use whatever authority that you may in your capacity to contact the zoning board and to say, we've got to put the stops on everything. This is the fire company. These are the guys that, last week there was a story at the Southard, and we're going to have Chief Memlo here. We had 2 hero firemen who pull senior citizens out of a burning building. I mean, these are the people that, if we're going to help somebody, these are the people we're going to help. So I would ask that tomorrow we get on top of this. And Mr. Nunziata, you're nodding. We got to get this one to the top of the pile. Let's get him in the next meeting. Let's get him first on the agenda, and let's get this straightened out.
Okay.
Everyone okay with that? What I would also ask, and I'm not certain how we go about doing this, but I'd like us to craft an ordinance to fast track, whether it is the fire service or any of our first aid squads, when they go through this process. The Howell First Aid Squad on Kent Road has been dealing with a whole bunch of issues and trying to get their pole barn put up. And I respect the process, and there's reasons for it. But I have to tell you, I think any time whether it is any of the fire services or any of the first aid squads, when they approach the town to do something, we have to come up with some sort of a fast-track legislation so they go to the top of the pile. They're not subject to 45 days or whatever it is. We get their stuff and we review it, and we do it within, I don't know, a week. Whatever is reasonable. But these are the entities that need to be helped. And I wanted in the ordinance, to the extent we can do this, Mr. Gannon, that if you are a professional of the town, township attorney, township engineer, that these respective agencies, the fire service and emergency management, don't get charged by any of the professionals. If you want to be the planning board attorney, you do work for these guys at no cost, as a function of a part of the community process. So I don't have all the answers, I don't profess to, but I would like you as a management team to construct a set of arrangements that puts the volunteer firefighters and the volunteer first aid workers, when they're going for a cell tower, trying to put a pole barn up, they get in and they get out fast for the least amount of expense. So maybe you guys can work on that and come back to the council unless anyone disagrees with whatever recommendations you got, and let's pass a law.
We'll give you some options.
We would appreciate it. Chief, is there anything anything you want to add on that? I see your name is on the list. Did you want to talk about that tonight?
It was about that, and I have a copy of the letter for the item that still remains outstanding.
If Chief, would you mind, Mr. Nunziato, could you do us a favor? Could you speak to the chief for a moment now? This way, Chief, we'd love you to stay, and you're welcome to stay. But I'm sure you may have other things, is not to hold you up. Maybe Mr. Nunziato can see in the hall, and he can collect what we need, and we'll get this fixed right away.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Chief. Thank you. A couple of other comments. We got correspondence from the Shade Tree Commission that they're looking for an accounting of their funds. And I know that Mr. Filiatro isn't here. I was sort of taken aback by the correspondence we got. It's a July 19th memo that Shade Tree Commission hasn't received any reports on a quarterly basis, and they're a little concerned. I'm certain that the funds are funds are there, but can you fill us in?
Sure. There is a budget report that gets generated every month for all the committees in town with respect to what the balance is. The concern here is generating something that's of greater detail. So what I've done, as you know, we announced last week that the new Public Works Director is a certified tree expert, and that he has reached out to the Shade Tree Commission, and he's arranging a meeting to go over what we can do, not only with respect to those issues, but a number of others in town. We have numerous tree issues in town, and we need to craft a uniform approach that everyone understands where we're coming from. And part of that is how we replace trees, and we utilize that fund to replace some trees in some instances, but we can't in others. So we need to have a policy that's clear, that's simple to understand. So we're trying to craft something in a question and answer format that we could put on a website. And once we get a hold of that, we can tie it into the then the budget will be easier to understand and explain. But we really need to delve into that. Mr. Zigpanik is our certified tree expert, and he does a tremendous job for us, but he has a full-time job himself. We're a huge town, many tree issues, and that is a priority of mine, to get on top of this tree question.
Has someone just gotten back, or will someone get back to
He
Ms.
already
McKee?
has.
So that's in the works.
They've already spoken. Yes.
Okay. One other quick item, then I have something else to get into, is I've gotten a lot of emails from residents around the issue of how can they go about recycling their grass clippings. And apparently, Mr. Panic and I had a conversation, and he said that the best way to dispose of grass clippings is, in fact, through mulching at the time that you're cutting. And he listed a whole number of environmental concerns and issues. And so I had suggested to Mr. Panic, it was during one of the recesses here in these chambers, that perhaps he prepare something that we could put on the town website so that a resident who would like to understand how to go about doing that and take advantage of the environmental impact and how to go about mulching their grass or whatever the case may be, that we make it available to people. So if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chernetsky, if perhaps you can have a follow-up conversation, Mr. Panic, and I see on our terrific website we've got a whole space now for news updates. And I think it'd be great if we published something there that explains the whole process behind how to go about recycling grass clippings. We have a community that is very environmentally sensitive, very concerned about protecting our natural resources, and the best way apparently to dispose of grass clippings is this process, and the county has recommended it, and so hopefully we can share that with members of the public.
The only follow-up comment I'll have to that is that, again, we envision that website being a valuable tool, a valuable resource for people to go to from the town and not necessarily have to actually call the township departments. In other words, maybe we have various silos, environmental being one of them, planning being another, whatever they might be as category headings, but then underneath those you have the frequently asked questions that people would have about a specific thing. So if they want to add a shed, well, here's the 10 most commonly asked questions, and here's the answers to them, here's the process. If they want to add a pool, basically like that, where they don't necessarily make a phone call first. They can go to that website, get whatever information they may have already available to them, and then be satisfied.
Did you note that, Helene? Okay.
She's taking that. Yeah.
She's taking notes.
That is our goal.
Okay.
I have some comments to make, and I'm going to attempt to be brief and concise. It has to do with the ongoing recall effort. And I'm going to take this opportunity to be very candid and speak very directly to the community. There has been an ongoing effort by a group of individuals to exercise a provision of the law to remove me as your mayor. We had an election 2 years ago, and I was very blessed and very fortunate to be elected by a fairly overwhelming majority of the people, and that was not that long ago. This recall effort, in my judgment, based on a number of things, really questions the legitimacy of our democratic process. And there are provisions in the law that allow for it, but I think at times people attempt to use the law for provisions upon which it was not intended. And I want to be very clear that at first I was sort of taken aback with respect to why something like this would come about, and questioned the process and felt it was political. In my view, not only is this a political issue, this is a tremendous waste of taxpayer funds. We anticipate and had to put in the budget nearly $80,000, $80,000 of your money to pay for the potential special election and the process that would go along with this. I will also say that having witnessed some of the behaviors and things that have gone on, while I at first wondered if it was political, I am now absolutely and completely convinced that this is political. Without stating any specific reasons, there's really nothing to understand in terms of what the issues are. Of late, the people behind the recall effort have begun to suggest reasons. I will let the community know on more than one occasion, in person and in writing. I reached out to organizers of the recall in an effort to meet with them at any time, in a private place or in a public place, to try and understand their concerns and to speak with them about how to make differences. And on more than one occasion, I was told it would be taken under advisement, and then I was never responded to. Of late, there have been issues around taxes and spending that I have, on my own, on a singular basis, increased spending and taxes at dramatic levels. Yet, the recallers have spoken out against the budget cuts and the cuts in spending that we implemented just last year. There's been talk about eminent domain and the mayor's abuse of eminent domain. Not only have we never taken a piece of property vis-a-vis eminent domain where we remove someone from their home, this council passed a resolution prior to the recall effort condemning the use of eminent domain. So I'm not really sure where that comes from. And they've talked about outrageous bonding debt. We have bonded. We've bonded to improve our infrastructure, and we've bonded to buy open space. What's interesting from a contradictory perspective is that these individuals have also talked about trying to protect open space and reduce residential growth. One of the ways to do that would be to buy open space. It would be to preserve farmlands. One of the individuals from the recall group actually suggested that we use the authority of eminent domain to take all of the open property in the community to make sure it could never be built on, demonstrating, at least in my view, a very interesting contradiction about using eminent domain, but then not using eminent domain. Preserving open space, but not wanting to have to pay for it. In my view, the conclusion, and it's the conclusion of hundreds of residents who have called me, is that this is a political smear campaign. It's been designed to embarrass me personally, embarrass my family, and embarrass the community. What's even more troubling is that under New Jersey law, organizations like this recall have an obligation to file ELECT reports with the state of New Jersey for funds they have spent. It is a state disclosure requirement. And according to the Department of Elections in Trenton, this recall organization has never filed a report, yet they've spent dollars. They've sent out mailings, they paid for signs, they have even potentially paid for people to collect signatures. And they've done so in violation of the law at a minimum by not disclosing who paid for the postcards that they mailed. I'm wondering, maybe there's big developers behind this. Maybe there's some special interest group that is behind this, and why not tell us the source of the funds that are paying for this recall effort? If it's genuine, what would there be to hide? I really question the integrity of the process. People want to hold me accountable. I'm willing to accept that. We've made some difficult decisions in the time that I've been in office. I have no problem being held accountable for every single one of them. I have no problem explaining the vote behind why we've done certain things. And I'm proud of the record of accomplishments that we have had as a municipality. Is there more work to be done? There absolutely is. Can we continue to cut spending? Can we continue to preserve open space? Continue to make our community a safer and more affordable place to live? You betcha. That's why I ran for mayor. In the time that I've been in this position, I believe we've made very measurable results to make our community a better place to live. And if people want to hold me accountable, I encourage them to do it. It comes with the job. But every decision I have made, I have done so because I believed it was in the collective best interest of the town. And I'm going to continue to do that without being distracted by people who refuse to confront me in a public way, perhaps in these chambers, and put on the record their objections. Because the objections are nothing but contradictions. The objections have caused $80,000 in taxpayer expenses. If people think I should be removed from office, then I encourage them to sign the recall petition. If they believe that is going to change the institution of this government, is going to lower their taxes, is going to preserve open space, is going to bring in ratables, then they can sign that petition. But I think most people know that's not the answer. We need to work together as a community to find solutions, to be respectful of one another. And when it's time to make a difference, if I was to seek election again, they can vote me out of office. They can come to these chambers and they can debate the issues on the merit, but they can be held accountable in the open public for their actions and their behaviors. If anyone has a question or a problem with the decisions I've made as mayor, I'd ask you to call me at home on 732-761-8734. That is my home telephone number. I take calls from residents 7 days a week. And I would be happy to explain to any resident the decisions I've made, why I've made them, and why, in my judgment, I am best suited to continue to serve the balance of my term as your mayor. I think most people would agree with that. I'm willing to be held completely accountable for anything that has happened in the time I've been in this chair. But I would certainly hope that people would exercise better judgment and more restraint rather than trying to make a mockery out of our government and overturn a legitimate election for purely political purposes. If anyone would like to speak to me about it, I've given my number. I answer every email. I visit with residents routinely. This issue has caused me great personal distraction. It's also caused personal distraction to my family because of some of the very unfortunate and unkind things that have been said or spread about me, which are completely untrue. So in closing, I would offer the individuals of the recall committee to come here in these chambers, and I'll turn the meeting over to the deputy mayor, and I will allow them to ask me questions on an unprohibited basis for as long as they would like, at any day, time, or hour of their choosing. And we can do it on live television for the entire community to see, not their spokespeople, not their lawyer, not their representative, the people who are behind the recall. And I have a funny suspicion that after we would have gone through that process, it'll be abundantly clear that it is absolutely nothing more than a political smear campaign. I appreciate your consideration on this issue. I am proud to be the mayor of Howell Township. I'm going to continue to lead this community, regardless of the outcome. I thank you for your attention on this matter.
If I may just make a quick comment.
I'll have one too.
I've had the distinct honor of working with Mr. DeBella, our mayor, a person who I'm very honored to consider and say that he's my friend. He is a friend of mine. I support the mayor 100%. I agree with everything that he said. I said back then when I found out that this was going on, I stated that this is nothing but a political stunt by irresponsible people who basically have a hidden agenda. Or perhaps they're misinformed. I don't know. But the misinformation can't just go on. I think the mayor has opened the doors for them to come and speak with him at any time. And I think that if there are concerns about something that he has done, obviously I don't know why they picked on the mayor. The mayor, as you guys know, it's one vote, 1 of 5. So if the mayor votes one way, that doesn't mean that that everybody else goes along with it. We've had differences here. The mayor have had differences with my votes at times, and I respect him for that. But it's a shame that this community, I tell you, I come from northern New Jersey where politics, it's at its worst, I think. And Howell Township, for some reason, I have to say that I'm ashamed to say that the political games here in this township has really escalated over the last 6-7 years for whatever reasons. And this is people who don't agree with policy making, and that's okay. I don't expect you to agree with us all the time. I can assure you that, and I can speak for the 5 of us up here, that every decision that we make in the best interest of the township at large. And it's not going to please everybody. We're not going to always please all the people all the time, unfortunately. I support the mayor. I wish that the people would wake up and don't listen to rumors. If you have a concern, call the mayor, come here, call any one of us, and we'll give you a straight answer instead of listening to rumors, because that's how everything starts. I think this is all starting with the rumors that we're taking over properties via eminent domain and this and that, which is totally untrue. That has never been the case. It hasn't even crossed our minds, at least certainly not mine. And again, for anything that the mayor wants to do, he needs another 2 votes. So I don't know why people are, or some of the people, I think it's a very small minority of group of individuals who are attacking the mayor for, I like to think it's personal reasons. They just dislike the man for whatever reason. I like the mayor. I think he's a great guy. So just let's move on. Let's do the township's business. This is what you guys elected us to do. And again, if you don't like what we're doing, this election's coming up. You can certainly vote your opinion at that time and get us out of office. That's basically it. That's the way to do it. Not through this process. I disagree with the process.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
I do have some. Sure. I'll try to keep this brief. I actually wasn't expecting you to have this conversation tonight, but I will tell you that I am very comfortable with decisions that we have made over the 3.5 years that I've been on this council. I sleep very peacefully at night with regards to township business. I have other things that keep me up at night, but not the township business. We, the three of us actually are sitting here tonight, ran together 4 years ago, and you may not recall, but our motto was vision, character, leadership, and integrity. And all three of us, when we were inaugurated, had speeches that laid out objectives to be achieved over the course of our term. And I'm proud to say that we've hit every single one of them, plus many more. And the many more things that we were presented with, a lot of them were political hot potatoes. But we didn't let them sit. We still addressed them. So what I will also say is it's very evident, and I'm sure it's very evident to the TV world out there, that there is a deep passion from the three of us sitting here right now, especially from Joe. There's a huge fire within. The fire was lit for us 4 years ago, and that fire is still burning with deep passion to do what's best for this town. And that's our only motive. There is no other hidden agendas that the three of us do. We just don't have the time to scheme to do the bad things that people think that we're doing. The only interest we have is the town's best interest. So I'm sure you can tell by Joe's voice today that there's a deep passion for doing the right thing. Juan, the teddy bear down there, I know he has it within him. And I know people, see the energy that I have also. Joe and I are a lot alike in that respect. So I consider Joe a very good friend. I agree with Juan that although we all ran together and had some similar objectives together and have achieved together, we still do have great debate up here, and at times we don't necessarily agree. So we have tough decisions to make. Sometimes it's a choice between a bad decision and a bad decision. So when that comes up, we base our decisions on the visions and objectives we laid out 4 years ago. So, Joe, I'll speak just to one specifically, because I know some people are very confused about this. We have the town's power to bond for what we think are good objectives. And Joe alluded to the fact that we're trying to preserve open spaces. And we are at historical lows, even now still, with interest rates going up for what interest rates are at. So there's never been a better time when we're looking to preserve open space than now to actually use the bonding power to go get that open space. It would actually be irresponsible on our part to let the spaces that have been available to take not to go after them. And then 15 years from now, have the rates be much higher or have the properties already be gone. So I know, and Jeff has alluded to this at other meetings, and he's not here tonight, but just to give you an idea, we have the ability to have bonded for about $173 million. And we have only bonded, I think, 41 or 42 million. So we're actually only at about a third of what we actually can do. And some of that bonding that Jeff did wasn't necessarily to preserve the open spaces that Joe was talking about. It was also to refinance debt from before at the lower rates. So it was only sound financial planning to do that. And Jeff can get into it more when he's here next time. But that's why. And one of the other council members, he happens to have a business where, it benefited from the fact that people as general consumers refinanced all their homes over the period of time that went by the last 4 years because it made sound financial sense to do that. Well, the town, my phone's off, by the way, so it's not mine. So the town actually went through those same thought processes and did what we did for that reason. So we never do anything without good debate. We never do anything without thinking about it. We never do anything irresponsibly. And we always do things with a passion, a deep burning fire within us to do what's best for the town. And with that, I will say that, Joe, you are my friend. I love all three of you. The three of us all love each other like brothers. And we do actually debate like brothers sometimes, meaning we don't necessarily agree. But at the end of it, we've all been good enough to move on to the next thing. And just for the best interest of the town, too. And some of these things that are negative that get hit on us have just dragged on forever and just tear down people. And, we want to set a tone that everybody's moving forward with good spirit and with the best interest of the town. And stuff like this that's been dragging on now for almost 6 months, it just puts a huge demotivational factor in our heads And I know you've been down at times. We've had discussions about it, in fact. But I will tell you, you're a good friend of mine, and I appreciate your fire and your passion for doing the right thing.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to get to our consent agenda items on the agenda. Call the council's attention to the 9B items. This is a combination workshop and regular meeting. So as it relates to the 9B items, we have 9B, obviously 1 through 9B31. We have 9C items, which are fairly straightforward motions. In addition, we've got some add-on items.
That's what I do with those.
I'll read for the record. The add-on items, 9B32 is authorizing a refund of a dog license. 9B33 is to deny request for a performance guarantee release for Charleston Woods, Aldridge Road, and Pinewood Road. 9B34 is to authorize Ernest and Francine Tilton, Block 78, Lot 6 and 7, to move forward with their land use application pending final agreement with the utility department. 9B35 is authorizing an acceptance of a project, payment of retainage and acceptance of a maintenance bond, municipal facility improvements, and UST compliance program. 9B36 is to authorize a senior grant for the Monmouth County Office on Aging. And I believe those are the items to be added on. Ms. Woolman, it says here, possible ordinance introduction, 9A4, amending Chapter 273, times for solid waste collection.
Mayor, under discussion, we have an issue of regulating the hours
Right.
of operation in residential
Yes.
neighborhoods. We actually have an ordinance that I think is in good form. So if council is so inclined, you could possibly introduce it tonight.
All right, when we
After
get to
we discuss
ordinances,
it.
we can, we'll look at it at that time. For the record, for the benefit of the council, I had asked, based on a number of comments from residents, that many of the disposal companies are beginning at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, picking up garbage and waking people up at early hours of the morning. And so, like we have times to begin construction, thought it might be a good idea for us to debate the issue. So we can talk about it then. Are there any comments or remarks with respect to the consent?
Adding those? First, you got to add them. I think.
Yeah, first, motion please to add on 9B32 to 36.
So move.
Second,
We have a
Mayor.
motion and a second. Any comments on the add-on? Are hearing none, roll call on the add-ons, please.
Mr. Malabay?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. All right, any comments with respect to any of the 9B or 9C items? Questions or comments?
Just give us a minute again to go
Sure.
through. One more time.
With respect to 9C1, we have not obviously taken action because of the appointment to the Economic Development Committee. The term expires at the end of next year. Since Councilwoman Showmaker and Councilman Walsh are not here, I might suggest that we hold off and not act on 9C1. Plus, I don't know that we've gotten through all the resumes.
I will add to that, Mayor, that the problem is a lot deeper than just one vacancy. There's really only 4 people right now, maybe 5, that are regularly attending. The others all have conflicts with the meeting night. So we need to find out if they, in fact, plan to come, or do we need now to replace. So maybe we hold off on this
Okay.
and nominate many people.
Okay. Any other comments on 9Bs or 9Cs? All right, hearing none, I'd ask for a motion and a second excluding 9C1, but approving all other items.
Can you give a first explanation on several of these things before you vote on them? The citizens' comment is after it's all done.
All right, Mrs. Dixell, since you have questions, I'll allow you to come up, and why don't you ask us what your questions are? Because it might not make sense to go through each of them, but you need to come forward so we can get you on the record.
Well, come on up to the
Come
mic.
on up, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask your questions on them. We welcome that. Does anyone else have any questions on the 9B or 9C items? These are the resolutions. Okay, Mrs. Dixell will recognize you, and then we'll get back to the next items. Welcome, Mrs. Dixell. I think that-
Testing in the hospital today, so I'm not firing on all jets.
Okay, take your time.
Just want a quickie.
Turn
If
the,
you would,
turn
Mrs.
that-
Dixell, if you'd pull the mic and just please give us your
Barbara
name and
Dixell,
address.
The Villages, thank you. 9B7.
Okay. 9B7. Mr. Nunziato, 9B7, authorize a refund of unused escrow funds, AST Development, Block 11002. What is this all about, sir? I mean, we know the answer, but for Mrs. Dixell.
This would be any of the unused escrow fees when they had their board application and they were required to post fees and escrows. And now that the project is in its current status and it's no longer an active project, they are able to be refunded their fees.
It has nothing to do with any
The-
possible litigation or anything.
No, AST presented to the planning board, as any applicant would. They had to provide certain funds up front. The project is dead from a planning board perspective as it relates to their application, and so this is a normal course of doing business.
9B10.
Okay, 9B10, Mr. Nunziato, please.
Driveway guarantees are normally a seasonal posting where if blacktop, the asphalt plants are not making blacktop due to the weather, they are required to post a guarantee and stone it, and that's normally what's done, and it's paved in the spring.
9B22.
Okay, 9B22. Authorizing execution of agreement for municipal service with the Windmill Club. Mr. Gannon, please take it away, sir.
I can't count as quickly as you, Mayor. This is our, what they call the Kelly Bill agreement with the Windmill Club. I'd have to look at the details, but it deals with the municipal services that are going to be afforded Windmill Club like we do with the other homeowner associations in accordance with the Kelly Bill.
What is the Kelly bill?
Well,
Very
it's
briefly- No, please, Mr. Gannon, go ahead, sir.
well, I was going to say it's NJSA 40:67-23.2.
Okay.
so-
Now,
Mrs.
okay.
Dixell, here's the explanation. We have an agreement with homeowners associations.
Right.
The original stipulation agreement with the Windmill Club requires the township to provide certain amenities as it relates to paving of roads, the main thoroughfare, much in like what we're
Okay.
working with the
Does that
villages.
include the villages? Does this agreement include the villages?
Well, this is a specific
I
agreement
know.
between, I'll get to your
Okay.
point. This is a specific agreement between the Windmill Club and the Township of Howell that was executed many, many years back. The township is in active discussions to live up to the agreement and to pave certain portions of the thoroughfare. As it relates to the villages, in fact, we have correspondence from the attorney from the villages as a follow-up to a meeting that
Right.
you were in and Mr. Lariah was in. And in fact, we have realized progress, and Township Attorney is working on a letter of response back to fulfill the obligations that were tentatively agreed on in that meeting with representatives from the villages and the township to begin to provide funds for the paving of roads,
'Cause-
absent a debate on the definition of a
Right, because
thoroughfare.
I say, we do have
Yes.
active ordinances that have been in place a long time. And the only other one is 9B20. And the rest of my
9B20.
comments I'll save for when it's citizens' comments.
Sure. Authorize award of contract architectural services for the renovation of municipal courts. Mr. Cherniatsky, please.
This is a prior capital bond where these funds are coming from, and it's to, during the capital budget presentation, it was explained how there are various safety enhancements,
Security risks.
security measures and customer service improvements we want to make to the court, and we're sort of running out of space there as well. So this pays for an architect to do some interior planning, rearrangement of floor plans, security windows, that sort of stuff.
Okay, and the only other thing I'll say is 10.2, you need to do it due to an unfortunate incident that I'm not going to go into. It needs to be done. And
Yeah,
I did
sure.
provide Mr. Chinetsky with a lot of research that I did on the net
Thank you.
and ordinances that could be used. So
Good.
this needs to be done.
We agree.
I can't go into what this is, but it has to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information.
Of course. Thanks, Mrs. Dixell. Mr. Lariah, welcome, sir. Come on up.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Just, as always, your name and address, please, for the record.
Vince Lariah, 56C, The Villages. I had originally planned to make this appeal during the residents' or citizens'
Hearings.
hearings. It's relative to the 9C,
7, the Kelly Bill?
no, 3, the raffle.
9C3, sure.
Our men's club does a raffle for, a very extensive one, for the first aid squads and perhaps some PBA gets involved in it, but we're really behind schedule. Now, I think I heard you say that you were going to approve this tonight, but...
Absolutely.
Well, that's, we're late. Last year, we put together about $10,000 in donations to these
Yep.
groups. We in the villages have to get moving to kind of make up for lost time.
Sure.
Okay?
Thanks,
Thank
Mr. Lorian, appreciate it. Anyone else that had questions on 9B or 9C items? Okay. Hearing none, we had a motion. and a second.
I'll make a motion now that we approve all the 9B and 9C items except for 9C1, which I think we removed, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so I motion that we approve all those except for 9C1.
Second, Mayor.
Motion and a second. Any final comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we're going to go to 8A1. This is an amendment to the Broadcast Advisory Committee, Broadcast Media Advisory Committee. This ordinance amends a certain chapter establishing the requirements that one member of the local or regional board be added. The introduction was read on June 27th, and the public hearing and the adoption, in fact, shall be this evening. Thank you, Peter, Deputy Mayor. We'll proceed. Ordinance number 00627, introduced and passed on first reading on June 27, 2006, and published according to law, is now being taken upon further consideration in a public hearing. Affidavit of the publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of June 30th is submitted, and it is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and the copies were available to the general public upon request. Ms. Woolman, would you kindly read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 5, Advisory Committees, Article 3, entitled Broadcast Media Advisory Committee, to establish the requirement that one member be a representative of either the local or regional school district.
Okay, I'm going to open the meeting to the general public for a hearing, remarks, comments for or against the adoption of this particular ordinance. Anyone who would like to be heard, please come forward. You'd like to be heard on this, please come forward. This is specific to this particular ordinance.
I didn't.
Sure, welcome. Mr. Magid, if you'd kindly just give us your name and address for the record.
Abe Magid, 89 Mariners Cove, Howell.
Hello, Abe.
Very nice. 11th safest township in the whole nation. That's great.
Wonderful.
Great. I would add also, it's a very great township, besides being safe. Okay. I just wonder about this, because I'm not filled in. The representative, is this for the Freehold Regional or for the Rio Regional?
Sure. The explanation is this is the township board that helps determine policies and procedures around how we govern our television channel, potentially comments on our website. So it's a media advisory group. And right now it is filled with just at-large volunteers from the community. This law is going to create a spot on that committee for a member of either the local or the regional Board of Education, since on our television channel, we oftentimes will put out messages on behalf of the Board of Ed. But it is a township committee, and we're looking to get their participation.
Yeah, I guess I didn't understand. I thought this had something to do, which I thought was a good idea, that in addition to our regular representative, somebody from the council could actually, or not necessarily from the council, somebody in addition that relates to the town council who go to these meetings, because of that 88% in 10 years they've increased, taxes are flying, but that has nothing to do with it.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Magid. Anyone else who'd like to be heard for or against this ordinance, please come forward. Okay, seeing... We apologize, ladies and gentlemen, a technical difficulty with the sound system. I would just ask anyone that is actually here in the audience, in the event you have a cell phone at times, the system is activated by a cell phone frequency. You may hear the buzzing every now and again. That typically is what could set off the system. So if you wouldn't mind...
could actually be some. Taking a 5-minute recess, did you say, Mayor?
Yeah. They just tried to fix it.
We can hear each other.
What's up, Jim? You know, it could actually be a
Jim.
tractor trailer on 195 sitting there talking on the radio. That would pull
got an
everything
amp on it.
Yeah, that would pull everything out. Or it could be an F-15, one of those jamming, F-1E, I think, drams.
Could be a kid's robot.
They're flying overhead trying to jam our signal. They think our conversation is a threat to you.
I just raised these, I just raised these up, it might help.
I don't know if that's it or not.
I just raised,
Fixed? Okay. We're set. Mr. Tabasco, Mr. Malave, we're actually, we're back and running.
My high school, are you a graduate of Don Bosco?
Okay, I'm going to reconvene the meeting to order. Our apologies, folks, for the difficulty with the sound system.
So a motion that ordinance number 06-27 be finally passed and adopted, and notice of its passage and adoption be published in the July 28, 06 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only. We need a second, Mayor.
We do need a second.
Second, Mayor.
Motion and a second. Are there any additional remarks?
Hearing none, I guess.
Hearing none, Mr.
Tommy,
Chinesky,
wanna
would
do a roll
you
call?
please call the roll?
All right. Mr. Malave,
Yes.
Mr. Deputy Mayor Tabasco,
Yes.
and Mayor DeBella.
Yes.
3-0,
Okay,
Mayor.
we are moving right along. We are going to 8A2, building height restriction.
You got it? Okay. good.
Ordinance number 00630, introduced and passed on first reading on 6/27/06, and published according to law, is now being taken upon further consideration in a public hearing. Affidavit of the publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of 6/30/06 is submitted, and it is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and the copies were available to the general public upon request. Ms. Woolman, would you kindly read the title of ordinance 8A2?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 188 entitled Land Use as it applies to the height restrictions within the HD1, HD2, and HC zones.
Okay, I'm going to open up the meeting to the general public. Anyone who'd like to be heard for or against the final adoption of this ordinance, please come forward. Yes, sir, welcome.
Hey, Jay.
Please give us, as always, your name and address for the record.
Jack Bannon, 16 Woodland Drive.
Good evening, Mr. Brennan.
When this, I guess, was initially put forward, the original ordinance also had a 50-foot height for SCD zones. I have a copy of the original ordinance. And it also, there was a chart, I guess, attached to the back of it that listed SCD zones, with impervious coverage and other things. And I noticed that the one that's being voted on tonight has that area removed from it.
Correct.
Maybe you can clarify something for me?
Sure.
If it's posted that you're going to vote on a specific ordinance and it's changed before the final ruling of adoption, doesn't it have to be reposted again?
No, council voted, prior to adoption, voted to amend, voted on an amended version, which removed the SED requirement.
Okay.
Then that's what they voted on. The council has the authority to amend things before they vote on them.
Okay.
It's just that after they introduce them, if there's any substantive changes after introduction, then you have to redo it.
Okay.
But this was presented to them. It was determined that, it was realized that there was no height limit in the SCD zone now.
Right.
So when we drafted the ordinance, we said, well, let's include something based on what we've derived from the master plan process. But when it got here, the council rightly pointed out that there's never really been a discussion about that zone, although clearly it's missing and needs to be addressed. So let's vote on what's missing and what's been discussed already, and then we'll revisit that when we do that zoning.
I know I spoke about it. I thought, I made a suggestion to make it uniform at 45 feet. It would sort of make sense.
I think we have to look at it in the context of the zoning changes that are being proposed as
So
part of
it
the
can
master
be
plan
added
process.
As another ordinance later.
Yeah.
Correct. It is
Okay.
the
All right.
intent that we specifically.
That's what I'm asking. That's, okay.
Yes. It is the intent that we specifically look at the SCD as an aside. We wanted to get regulations on the books to protect us now
Right.
where there is exposure.
Not a problem. The only other thing that I wanted to point out, and I know there's going to be discussion later about the hotel ordinance,
Yes.
but one thing I just wanted to point out between the two, the hotel ordinance is a conditional use for HD1 and HD2 zones. And if you look at that, it's contradictory from the height ordinance to what is being proposed on the hotel ordinance. The hotel says 50 feet, where the HD1 and HD2 zones for height is 45 feet. I just wanted somebody to be aware that something is not matching somewhere.
Okay.
Basically, that's it. I mean, I guess this will come up for discussion later in the meeting.
We're aware of that. The idea with respect to, that was debated at the time with respect to the 45-foot for commercial, was that we really wanted to be in a position to implement our design standards thoroughly. And that, for general commercial purposes, that kind of made sense. But I think the height limit on the hotel has been debated quite thoroughly. And there was a consensus on the 50 feet amongst the council.
Terrific.
So they're not completely consistent, but I don't think I would term it as a contradiction either.
Well, if you wanted something uniformity within the ordinance standards, I'm just saying, shouldn't either one or the other should be changed, shouldn't it? Either make the HD1, HD2 50 across the board, or reduce the hotel. But I just
I think at
because
40
then I'm not trying to be
Right. At
pointed
40
about this, but it almost smacks like you're changing it for this one conditional use, which it shouldn't be. Either one or the other. It should be changed one way or the other.
Mayor, that's the
We'll take
opinion
it
of the
under
resident. I
consideration.
don't necessarily agree.
That's an issue, but oftentimes there's conditional uses in
Right.
zones that deviate from the normal zone because they're specifically drawn for that type of conditional use. So you can argue it should be 45, or you could argue 50, but it's not necessary.
I'm
or
just saying,
legal.
I mean, 5 feet one way or the other. Just keep it uniform across the board. That's all.
That's something that everybody strives for, but when you deal with conditional uses, sometimes you have to deviate from the general regulations. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Okay, anyone else who'd like to be heard for or against this particular ordinance, please come forward. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public portion. Member of the council, please proceed.
Motion that ordinance number 06-30 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the July 2806 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
We have a motion. We need a second, please.
Second, Mayor.
Motion and a second. Any final remarks?
I do have one comment on this, just to address what Jack had said. We had some great debate on heights, both for this ordinance and the one coming up later. And in fact, I was kind of the dissenting opinion on a lot of this. I think some of the height concerns that people have really are not really founded on anything other than fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I didn't really think it was right to tell people how to run their businesses. We had the side yard setback stuff in place and the front yard setback stuff in place where it couldn't go beyond a certain height anyway. But saying that now, it's time to move on. So although I had that dissenting opinion then, we debated this ad infinitum before, so I'm going to be in favor of this when we take the vote.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. 883, ordinance number 00631, introduced and passed on first reading on 6/27/06 and published according to law, is now being taken upon for further consideration in a public hearing. Affidavit of the publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of 6/30/06 is submitted, and it is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and that copies were available to the general public upon request. Ms. Woolman, would you please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending ordinance 0-06-9 entitled An Ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 2, Administration of Government, Article 6, as it applies to fees charged by the Department of Recreation in order to establish a late filing fee.
Okay, I'm going to open up the meeting to the members of the general public who would like to be heard on this particular issue, either for or against. If you'd like to be heard on this ordinance, please come forward. Anyone who'd like to be heard? Seeing no one, I'll close the public portion. Member of the council.
Motion that ordinance number 06-31 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the July 28, 06 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
We have a motion. We need a second, please.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any remarks from the council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to 9A1, which are various introductions of ordinances, including 9A1.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 06-23 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the July 28, 06 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on August 15, 06 at 8 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
Okay, we have a motion. We need a second, please.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Woolman, would you please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 188 Land Use to establish a hotel and/or conference center conditional use in the Highway Development 1 and Highway Development 2 zones.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Title has been read. Any comments?
We'll
Obviously,
debate.
this
I'm
is
sure
just,
there'll be a lot of comments next month on August 15th.
This is just the introduction. So roll call vote, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, moving on to 9A2, building design standards.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 06-32 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the July 28, 06 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that will be further considered for final passage at the public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on August 15, 06 at 8 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Woolman, would you please read the title?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell to establish Article of Chapter 188, Community Design Standards in the revised general ordinances of the Township of Howell.
I do have one remark,
Yes, sir.
Mayor, in that we had a great presentation by Tom with Chuck's help last week, but when this does come before us next month on August 15th, Tom, you may want to actually redo that again so a lot of the questions that people have may be answered before they actually come up and address those. So you don't want to do the whole presentation again, maybe do a summary version of it, but it will probably answer a lot of questions that people that were not here last week will then have answered.
Terrific. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. 9A3.
Almost there, Mayor. Motion to introduce ordinance number 06-33 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in full in the July 28, 06 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on August 15, 06 at 8 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
Okay, we have a motion. We need a second, please.
Second, Mayor.
Motion and a second. Ms. Woolman, would you please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article 2, entitled General Penalty, as it affects the amounts of fines and penalties.
Okay, we have a motion. The second title has been read. Any additional comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, we have now 9A4, actually, that we had added on as a possible item for introduction. Very briefly, I had asked the manager that we explore putting in some regulations around the times in which solid waste collection and disposal could take place. There is no ordinance now that regulates this. Many of these companies do start early in the morning. We've all received, as members of the governing body, calls from concerned residents that at 4 or 5 in the morning, they are awoken by large mechanical machines that disrupt their neighborhood. And so, since we have construction regulations and others, we thought it was appropriate to discuss some time parameters as to maintain some civility and decorum in people's neighborhoods in the early morning hours.
All right, so motion to introduce ordinance number 06-39. My phone's off. On first reading by title into order and saying to be published in full in the July 2806 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage at the public hearing and meeting of the Township Council to be held on August 1506 at 8 p.m. prevailing time in the municipal building.
We have a motion, we need a second.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Wallman, would you kindly read
Wait,
the title?
I-
I'm sorry.
I do have a comment. Actually, it doesn't specifically tie right to this, but just generally, I've been getting complaints, just as you did about construction. I've been getting complaints about noise nuisances. And what I mean by that is we have an unusual town compared to a lot of towns in that it's so big, and some of the properties are so big that people own, that they do recreational activities that actually annoy the heck out of neighbors. And in particular, there are people that have ATVs that may be buzzing around on them all hours of the night up till 10 o'clock when they're supposed to shut down. But other neighbors say that they're entitled to have peaceful enjoyment of their backyards. Let's say if they're trying to barbecue on their grill and they have this loud, 100 decibel noise going on, is that really peaceful enjoyment of their yard? So, Howell's not unique, Tom, so what I would then offer as a challenge to us is how do we address that where everybody comes out in a winning situation? A neighbor wants to use his property, which he's allowed to do, but the other neighbor wants to have peaceful enjoyment of their property, which they're allowed to do. So how do you address that?
Deputy Mayor, it's interesting, in the summer months, these problems arise more frequently, and sometimes it just wouldn't make sense to address them via ordinance, because, what you solve here, you create a problem elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a wonderful mechanism in the town, and I would encourage more residents to participate in this. A resident can contact our court administrator, and what often happens is where there's gray area and where it really it doesn't make any sense to do a specific ordinance, the resident can file a complaint to initiate the process, but make it clear at the onset that what they're looking for is mediation. And the vicinage, the Monmouth Vicinage, has trained mediators. These are volunteer people who are excellent. Really, I mean, they're I think they're followers of St. Francis. They're peacemakers, and they bring the parties together and they work out an agreement that's then presented to the judge. So it doesn't have to go through, it's just an agreement where people agree to live side by side. It's really a tremendous service, and where that does exist. They're typically a little skeptical of trying it, but I've seen it work really well.
You would that's a good thought. You would think that people, especially Howell residents, would be considerate of their fellow neighbors, but where it comes into play more, we've had development over the last 20 years, and Howell was a very rural town for the most part, but there are now streets where less than an acre properties or 1 acre properties were plopped down on the streets with 8 or 12 homes in areas that otherwise have 5 to 10 acre properties. So the backyards of some of these properties are 5 to 10 acres actually are in the backyard of those 6 or 7 homes where they're out barbecuing, and then you have people doing certain things like ATV driving, and then you run into this conflict. So by law right now, I think it's actually a noise nuisance type thing where they're actually allowed to be out there until 10 o'clock, but that doesn't do the people that have bought these homes any good because they're not really enjoying their backyard. So I'm not really sure how to answer that one. So I would lean on maybe Tom, who maybe addressed it in other towns, or Chuck, or maybe in planning about and thinking about zoning. And I don't know if this actually came up in some of the zoning discussions we had at your subcommittee level or the master plan level at the planning board level, but as to what permitted uses might be for people to actually do as far as their recreational activities in certain zones. Maybe there is no answer, but if you have thoughts on that and have addressed in other towns, we would gladly take and entertain those comments next meeting, maybe.
All right, we had a motion and a second. Ms. Wallman, would you kindly read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 273 entitled Solid Waste.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Title has been read. Roll call, please.
Mr. Malavey?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Yes.
Mayor DeBella?
Yes. Okay, item 10.1, discussion on refund policy for Parks and Recreation. I suspect our deputy manager is going to discuss this with us. Ms. Schlegel, welcome. Come on up. Would you kindly give us the necessary background of what you'd like us to
Sure.
consider?
Let me just give you this first. I know you have a copy, but this...
Thank you. Schlegel, if you wouldn't mind, just give us your name and address, or, yeah, name and address, your
Elaine
name and
Schlegel.
title.
Deputy Manager.
Well, that's the first time we've heard that.
Okay, let me just give you a little bit of background. The Parks and Recreation Department charges fees for various programs, facilities, and lighting, which help defray the cost of operations and maintenance. And historically, the Parks and Recreation Department, in its endeavor to provide excellent customer service, has granted refunds with no established criteria for doing so. And what we need, it's imperative that this department apply a consistent criteria regarding a refund policy. So the purpose of this procedure is to establish the criteria for which the refunds will be granted in a consistent manner within the department. Now, as recommended by the Chief Financial Officer, and since the final decision of refunds rests with the governing body, I'd like to request that the Town Council adopt the policy by resolution.
Okay, I think we've all had an opportunity to get this, obviously, in advance of tonight. Any questions or comments from Ms. Schlegel?
None at all.
Basically, the only comment I have is that this was actually discussed briefly at one of the Recreation Advisory meetings, and I believe that all of the members were pretty much in favor of this.
Yes, they were. As a matter of fact, they reviewed, the Recreation Advisory Committee did review it. They made their suggestions. The Chief Financial Officer reviewed it. He made some suggestions along with the Township Manager, and this was the final product.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve vis-a-vis a resolution, the adoption of the suggested refund policy.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion.
Second, Mayor.
We have a second. Any final comments? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Woolman.
Mr. Malave?
Yes.
Mr. Tabasco?
Aye.
Mary DeBella?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Schlegel.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
10-2, dangerous dog ordinance. This stems from a couple of contacts that my office has received that I shared with Mr. Chernietsky, a lot of it having to deal with a concern for, unfortunately, an increase, believe it or not, in pit bulls. There are some residents who have pit bulls as pets, and there has been some concern. There was actually an incident in one situation. So, Mr. Chernietsky, we're going to turn over to you to lead this discussion, please.
Well, we did have a resident, Barbara Dixell from the Villages, who actually did do some research. Interesting story. I was really had a busy schedule, and she wanted to meet and talk about this. And I asked her if she would do some research, and she was in my office the next morning with 4 inches of research. And so I want to thank her for it. And we're going through that. And so this may come in stages. But the first thing we want to do, Mayor, is change the amount of money we can charge for a dangerous dog license. There's a great deal of work in processing this and communicating with the courts. The current fee is $250. We would like to make it the maximum allowable by statute, which would be $700. And I think this would also start to serve as somewhat of a deterrent, to keeping these dogs.
I think just to expand on that, what you mean by that is if we only had a minimal fee and another town had a larger fee, the person would choose to come here. So we don't want to actually market for dangerous dogs that come to our town, so it makes sense to have everything be at the maximum so they don't come here just for that reason alone.
Right, and it'll be a multifaceted strategy we want to use to address this issue.
Mr. Chernietsky, is there a definition of what constitutes a dangerous dog?
It's in the statute, but usually the courts declare a dog to be a dangerous dog, and it's in the jurisdiction of the judiciary, and they let us know.
Okay.
And when they come into our town and bring the dog with them, we're usually advised by the town that they're coming from, and they have to come and register.
Okay. I mean, from my own perspective, we want to protect our residents. We don't want dogs, unfortunately, to fall into this very dangerous category, a pit bull roaming around in the neighborhood, in the neighbors' yards of our residents. I just want to make sure we're not going to find out that a person who owns a large German Shepherd all of a sudden is now going to have to go along with this, and that's not the case.
No, there's some very stringent requirements when a dog's been declared dangerous in terms of more or less like they have to keep them in a horse cage or something like that. It's it's a big process. It's also costly for us to follow up with all the
Okay.
regulations, make sure they're meeting them.
So what you've described is a multiple-step process, the first of which is you'd like us to give you direction to proceed on increasing the fee. Does that be required to be done via ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Anyone have an objection to the manager preparing the necessary ordinance for introduction?
It makes complete common sense.
Agreed. What's the next step in terms of other regulatory protections we can take for our residents?
One of the most intriguing ones that we're looking at next is the idea of carrying insurance. So we're researching that, and like I say, we're taking it one step at a time. And again, these are great ideas that Ms. Dixell researched and found for us to pursue.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixell. Okay, so we have consensus to direct the manager to begin the process. First step is introduction of a fee increase.
Yes, Mayor.
And you'll proceed. Terrific. Okay, you have your direction, Mr. Chernetsky. We've talked about 10.3, which is the trash haulers. We have under information a request to support the passage of Assembly Bill 2975 to appropriate $750,000 in federal funds for the Gypsy Moth program. Mr. Chernetsky, are we being requested to take action on this in some capacity?
From Plumstead Township adopted a similar resolution, and they're asking us to follow through with their lead.
In reading through it, Mayor, there's no harm in actually maybe sending along a resolution saying the same thing.
I agree.
As you recall, we had a problem this year
We
where
certainly did.
They anticipate a limited budget and then try to address areas of greatest concentration, but as we saw this year, it wasn't enough.
All right, so Mr. Chernetsky, you have your direction for the next council meeting. Would you please prepare a resolution supporting that? 11.2, my office received a request from a resident asking that we sign on with a resolution supporting actions to be taken to prevent global warming. There is correspondence here from Seattle, Washington, and I wanted to pass it along to the council since it came to me from a resident asking that that we consider this. Apparently other towns in New Jersey have signed on asking for protections to be taken by the federal government.
I will say that I would like to delve into this more and see exactly what they're asking us to do before necessarily agreeing to send this resolution along, because it could be some very strange. And in here, there isn't much detail as to what they're really specifically asking. Like if they're going to tell us you should close down all 20 gas stations in your town or whatever, we don't know if that's in there or not. So.
Mr. Chernetsky, for the next workshop meeting, there is some additional data that can be found in our book on page 11.2. There is a URL that apparently defines what it is they'd like the group to do. They want support for the Kyoto protocols. Perhaps you can just have someone print for us the additional backup to the Deputy Mayor's point that we just need a little more data before we can sign on in the event this has any issues for the town. Okay? Yes. All right, we have finished the agenda. Mr. Chernetsky, is there anything else we need to act on before we go to the hearing of the citizens?
No, sir.
Okay, we're opening the meeting to the members of the public, those that have signed in to be heard. The time is 9:35. I would ask that everyone be mindful that we have several people who would like to be heard. I would ask that everyone please use your best efforts to be as concise and direct as possible. We would prefer when you approach the council that you, to the best of your ability, let us know the items you'd like us to talk about so we can prepare and have our professionals prepare to best respond to any of the questions or issues. That is my wife. Mrs. Dixell, why don't you come forward, please?
Mayor, just for future reference, what set off the thing before was that this battery in the microphone died, and it sets off the calibrations of the equipment in there. So the planning board and zoning board is always asked to remove the battery.
And they didn't. Before we're going to proceed, Mrs. Dixell, we need to take a very quick 2-minute recess. If I excuse myself from the dais, we lose a quorum. So we're going to take a quick 2-minute recess.
That's right. There's only 3 of us tonight.
Yeah. My wife is calling me.
Check your important messages now.
Yeah, right?
Oh, you got the chance.
Like I said, the first thing I must do, Barbara Dixell, The Villages.
Thank you.
Howell Township. The first thing I must do is...
Hold on 1 second, Mrs. Dixell. Folks, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Dixell.
I must thank the clerk's office specifically. This morning I called them very early in the morning knowing that I had to do some extensive hospital testing today. I got my badge still, and that I wasn't sure I was getting back here on time, and I asked them to please put me on the list because I had to speak. And they graciously called me back, they spoke with Bruce Davis, and they did that, and I really sincerely appreciate that.
Terrific. Thanks, Mrs. Dixon.
Okay. Now I have to, the first thing I need to do, I need to say, you guys struck it rich. Tom Chernietsky, I don't know, man, I'm awestruck by this guy. He is wonderful. No, he, by being both a planner and a manager. I want to tell you something, this guy knows it from both ends, and boy, are we
Barbara,
lucky.
I take full responsibility for that.
I want to tell you, I don't
We
care
all
who
do.
did
We're
it.
fully accountable
I
for
don't
that.
care who did it.
When
but
I
you
said
did
I
it.
want to be held accountable for my actions, that's one of them.
But you did it, and I am tell you something. His ideas and his design and his he's got it right, man. You guys struck it rich. Don't
Thank
do
you.
anything to change it and screw up the works, please.
There is a big mistake in the works. I don't know what it is, but it's going to happen.
It hasn't happened yet. I mean,
He's level setting the
I just sit
expectation
here and I
here.
just listen to what this guy has to say and his concepts and I mean, it's just, I haven't heard this before. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
We appreciate that, Mrs. Dixon. Thank you.
Bravo to Helene. That's another quarter of an inch. She can turn another hat. Wonderful. 8:30 that morning when I read the Asbury Park Press, it were the 11th, the safest, I called him and I called the chief and I said, whoopee, we good, wonderful. Okay, new developments. Your new tree expert guy, I can't stand seeing developments in Howell on barren land. We need to see some trees planted on all these developments. All you see is houses sticking up in the middle of no place with nothing on them. Okay. Okay, the dog thing I did. Okay, now let me go into what I need to go into. I'm going to give you some pictures that I took today. Believe it or not, before I went and did my hospital thing, I ran out and took a roll of film. And we went and got them developed real quick. Okay, one other thing before I go into my main thing here is this. Again, you did send a letter to Hovnanian to, well, guess what? Here it is, guys. Not done yet. Not done yet. Fence is still broken, fence is still open. I said before, it's a matter of Homeland Security. Everyone's Homeland Security conscious in this world
Would
today.
you mind if I write the date on the back of this photograph? Would that be
yours.
okay? Thank you. No, I don't want to turn it into the
yours.
manager.
Everyone's Homeland Security conscious. You know, there's, like I said, there's radio equipment in there. There's all kinds of stuff. Howell Township has all kinds of very sensitive stuff around here. We've got all kinds of reservoirs, LNG, Navy Earl, Fort Monmouth, and we got all kinds of great stuff. And this thing, all the radio equipment, free open access is wide open. The fence is still broken, and I know I have the letter from you, which I have to go dig out and bring into Town Hall. But I don't know which folder it's in. So
Okay.
I have to go dig it out. But
Mr.
it's got they
Chernetsky, we're
got to
going
do
to
this.
turn this down to you. This is the entranceway to the water tower.
The water tower with all the radio equipment, the cell towers and everything. And the mayor did send a letter to Hovnanian about a year ago.
We did.
Asking him to please lock the gate. Put up a new gate, lock the gate. The fence is broken. The cemetery, the fence along the cemetery is broken. You know what? We can't have that. I'm sorry. Homeland Security is Homeland Security. And I think Hovnanian is wealthy enough that he can afford to go put up a new fence.
Well, we appreciate your diligence in monitoring that. We'll get right on it. I'm sure Mr.
Okay,
Chernetsky will contact
now my
them.
main thing is, again, we need to talk about the perimeter of the villages. I did bother Mr. Nunziata, again, before I did my hospital stint this morning. I was up here this morning. I did see Mr. Nunziata. I now have the signed-off maps for Manasquan River Park. Signed off by the township, signed off by Haskup, signed off by Pauline Smith, signed off by Barbara Capitan, signed off by everybody who needs to sign off on it, and Bruce Davis. Okay. They were approved in 2001. They got their main approval in 2001. We just passed an ordinance in 2002, and by the way, the thing that I had with the village's perimeter that I planning board and I fought over with John Junko was that we did get them to agree to, here it is, to the number 8 on the final resolution that we were to get the 50-foot four-season farm buffer. Well, I want to tell you something. I was out there today. I have a whole bunch of pictures here. It's a bunch of junk out there. It's a bunch of weeds, junk, garbage. And yes, there are houses there who I'm pretty sure, or almost sure, or willing to bet that some of their swing sets and some of their stuff is awful close to this buffer. So I'm giving you these pictures. And one house in particular on the end, maybe digging a pool or something, who knows, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. If anything is on the line, if anything is encroaching into the buffer, please have them move it. There's deed restrictions on these houses, okay? And these are the houses, believe it or not, on Village 1, Cuesto de Gomez.
Could we
Again,
take
just
those,
give it to
please?
them. Yep, absolutely, they're yours.
Thank you.
Okay, now, again.
Before you move on, Mrs. Ixel, Mr. Nunziato or Mr.
Chernetsky.
Can we pass these to the Code Enforcement Department and have them go out and
Take
do
a look and see what's
an
going on out
examination?
there.
We shall do so.
As a follow-up to that, now, obviously, that's Lennar, I think, that's building that development now?
Lennar. U.S. Home, no, it's three of them. They flipped it to
Lennar-
three different builders.
However you pronounce it, it's still, yeah.
U.S. Homes.
They obviously have some performance bonds up, and if they don't meet this buffer, can they be held back until
Yeah.
they do?
Oh.
What's the rule on that, Bill?
Well, let me just go back to her map questions and some of the issues. Again, as Mrs. Dixon indicated, they did get preliminary 2001, 2002. The township amended the ordinance just for this reason, that the buffer cannot be part of the setback. Buffer, and now you've got the 50-foot in addition to that,
No, it's a pre-
which now corrects that, I don't know if you want to call it a flaw, but the condition that exists out there now. Any of the buildings, decks, sheds, that type of thing that would be constructed in these rear yards would require land use. Land use is normally done on a plot plan, which does show the deed restrictions, and they can't be in there. And we normally catch those when the process gets done. We'd
Well,
be
here's
more
a-
than happy to look into any of the
Good.
ones that are there.
We're going to pass these down for Code Enforcement, and they'll all be looked into.
Okay,
Thank
now,
you.
also, again, here's the new ordinance, again, which says that they can't be here, and it says the requirement of a 50-foot wide perimeter buffer to be provided by the applicant around all major subdivisions and adjacent to active farmland shall be in addition to any land area that is required under ordinance for use of a rear yard setback area for proposed residential lots. Now, this is the new ordinance that we passed that says we can't do what they did in 2001. Okay, well, that was too late for this. Now, what I'm asking you to do, inasmuch as this has now been changed, and you have now, I have a picture of Good's house. I mean, you guys acted,
A what?
well, you took down the barn, and you took down the historic barn, and you took down the house. I mean, you guys acted awful fast on that. Why haven't you at least protected the village's residents? These houses were built too big for the land they're on. The setbacks, and I do have the buffers, yes, Bill did confirm, and we looked at them, the same things, the setbacks of the houses in Village 1 on Cuesto de Gomez, I got 7 houses in there that are encroaching the setbacks into this buffer.
Well-
50-foot buffer, hold on, 2 to 5 feet. Now, I don't care what you tell me, our township has a law that says you can't put structures and buffers. To me, I don't care what you say, these setbacks, to me, can constitute a structure.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. Mr. Chernetsky here as well. I'm sure we have the lot and blocks. If we don't, Mrs. Dixell, offline, if you could please provide them. And let's have Code Enforcement go out, let's have them take a look, and let's have them figure out if in fact there is an encroachment. We will decide that from a Code Enforcement perspective once and
I've got
for all.
the maps here, right here, they're
Can-
signed off.
Can I try to clarify this for the record? Again, and I know we've gone through this before.
Yeah, it's been
Basically, the lots themselves, okay, have a 50-foot buffer from the rear property line, 50 feet into the lot, across the backs, okay? On those filed maps, which do show the lots, they do show all the deed restrictions, and normally they also show the setbacks for each of the individual lots. The rear yard setbacks are 40 feet, so you see a dashed line at a 40-foot mark. 10 feet further in is also the easement, the buffers. So basically, you have a rear yard setback within a conservation easement. So, in this case, you do. And this is the old 2001 approval. There is no structures within those easements, but on the maps, you see a setback line within the easement. And that is how it was designed in that
Okay,
in
but that
case.
to me is encroaching, and like I said, when I went to the county, and I went to Senator Singer, and you know I went there, what did Senator Singer tell me? Tell him to bulldoze the damn houses and take them down.
Well, here's what we're going to do.
And that because, and I went to the county after that. Now, I brought the maps to the county, and the county pulled Manasquan River Park. I got the same maps there that I got here.
Okay.
And the county actually, I gave you guys the map, one map, they actually color-coded this for me.
Okay.
And to me, it's encroachment, and it's into the 50-foot buffer. What Senator Singer said, that we should be entitled to a fence now. I don't care if you put up post and rail. We wanted something more important. But if you put up post and rail, the houses that are encroaching into this buffer, that Mrs. Homeowner shouldn't decide to go pull trees out of this buffer line, go put a fence on her property, and so she'll lose 2 to 5 feet. Who the hell cares? Too bad. Let her go take it up with U.S. Homes, because they knew it, the township knew it, the planning board knew it, and what did they do? They made a developer rich at the expense of the village's residents.
Here's what we're
You
gonna
know
do.
what? I can't accept it. I'm not going to accept it. U.S. Homes got what they want. They built $900,000 houses on our expense, because these houses are smack up against our border. You know what? I'm sorry, it's not fair. Let them give us a fence, and let them now give us a fence the whole length of the village's property, because we have 2
bless
houses
you.
on Corso Italia that are exactly on the line with no buffer.
All right, Mrs. Dixell, here's what we're going to do. Mr. Chernetsky, I'm sure we have from Mr. Nunziato's office the properties in question. I think we owe it to Mrs. Dixell and those homeowners on both sides of this issue, have code enforcement go out with the maps and give a formal report, one way or the other, whether or not there is an encroachment. If there is, obviously there are remedies that we will rely on your office to execute. In the event there are not, we would appreciate a written report that will
Would you
clarify.
let me sit down with code enforcement also and show them my maps?
I would request that maybe offline you have a conversation with Mr. Chernetsky and whatever we don't want
I'll
to.
be glad to bring these maps in and show
Of
them.
course.
They're color-coded.
Yeah, whatever is the best way to collect whatever information we can, we'd be delighted to get it,
But
and we'll
now,
get
since
right
you
on.
do have the ordinance, if it's not what U.S. Homes wants to do, now, since you do have the ordinance, maybe the township should pay for the fence.
Yeah. Let us start
Huh?
with
You
let
know
us
what?
let us
I'm
start with
sorry. The planning board of Howell Township had no business giving a developer
That was the law then,
houses
though.
that, fine, but they knew it, and they knew the
If
houses
that was
were
the law
so
then,
big,
Barbara, you know that they can only
but
do.
the setbacks were so big.
All right, Mrs.
They've
Dixon.
twisted these
It's a
houses
different-
every damn which way.
I know
Here's a
you're-
picture of
I know
Gould
you're
House
upset.
With the thing, that your people did very quickly. I just.
saying
Gould.
House. What is that?
Good. Your guy that came from Staten Island, the guy that came from Staten Island, that's now on the, whatever, some guy by the name of that whoever took the
I didn't
house
know what
down.
the Gould- I thought that was some
Manasquan River
historic-
Park.
okay.
That this is now the house that has the barn and the God knows what taken down.
we get the-
That
Okay.
got done real quick.
We get it.
We're
Okay,
getting stuck.
we know the takeaways, and we're going to take it one step at a time. What else do you have, Mrs. Dixon?
No,
Is that
believe
it?
me when I tell you, that's it.
Okay,
Take care of us, once and for all. We need to be taken care of.
we appreciate
Please.
it. Thank you, Mrs. Dixon.
Oh, and we did go to the water company hearing the other day.
Yep.
I can't thank Mr. Gannon's office enough. I can't, God bless them enough. I can't thank Mr. Corrigan enough. We made our statement. We hope that it did not fall on deaf ears. We did get a turnout of at least 50 people from the villages.
Thank
I begged them. I actually begged them, and I put up a notice in the clubhouse. This is weigh
Good.
your priorities, folks. You have to be here more than you have to be anywhere else that day. Weigh your priorities. This is important to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixon.
And they did. We came, and the ratepayer advocate and the Board of Public Utilities was very happy with our presentation. And like I said, I can't thank Mr. Gannon and Mr. Corrigan enough. I can't, God bless them, enough. We do have a water quality problem, and we did not bring that up because we did not. I have a little bit of trepidation, fear of bringing that up at the hearing. We gave it to Jersey American after the hearing,
Mr. Dixon, we'll discuss that. I don't want to
Okay,
discuss that.
no, okay, that's fine.
Good.
So,
We haven't
okay,
forgotten that issue, but
No, okay.
we
Thank you
shouldn't
very
discuss
much
it
for
now.
your
Appreciate your
help. I
time. Thank
appreciate
you.
everything.
Good, nice to see you. Mr. Mike Howell, welcome, Mr. Howell. Come on up.
I do want to have one comment before Mike starts speaking, that Barbara actually asked a question in that 20-minute dissertation about what did we do, and it sounds like we actually did do something where an ordinance was passed that situation can't happen again. That's all we can do. Don't come back. The planning board, understand, everybody out there, the planning board is its separate body, separate jurisdiction, and when they look at applicants, they can only make decisions based on the law. If somebody comes with an application, even though the ordinance may have changed since then, at that time when it was the way it was, they had to decide based on what the law was then. So it's different now. You're not. You had your turn, let me finish. So understand the planning board did nothing wrong either, and the council couldn't actually get involved with that then. The council can only get involved with it now, which is what happened. We passed an ordinance that took that away for eternity.
Good evening, Mr. Howell. Welcome. If you'd please give us your name and address for the record, and if you wouldn't mind, if you'd just give us a sense of the items you'd like to.
There's nothing that's on the agenda. Michael Howell, 1A, Newton's Corner Road. Mr. Mayor, first of all, I could see the pain in your face and hear it in your voice regarding the recall. I don't advocate the recall. I don't endorse it. I don't think it's the right thing for the township. I've told you that privately many times. We've had discussions where someone actually told you I was in charge of the recall. Know it. You know it.
I do.
I have nothing to do with it. I don't endorse it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I spoke to Mr. Zaneski about a week and a half ago concerning the water lines that are going down Maxim Road.
Yes.
Something that concerns me is we're not requiring the water company to put the infrastructure pipes in the roadway. They're actually going in the township's right of way, which is in the dirt area, the residents' front lawns. Up and down Maxim Road, if you're familiar with the area across from the Pop Warner Field, we have trees there that are 6 to 8 to 10 feet in circumference. They started digging that road, that portion of the piping today. They're ripping the tree roots out. We're going to lose every tree on that road, and those are trees that have been here for quite a while. What can we do to say, stop, you can't do this tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock? Get out in the street and do it.
Mr. Chernetsky or Mr. Nunziato, Mr. Gannon, what is within our purview? This is an excellent point. We obviously want to take some action.
Well, first of all, we're not sure who has what easements or whatever. I don't know if the water company has any, but certainly we can talk to them as a quasi-public entity and see what their position is, and at least reach out and try to save as many trees as possible. I can't respond to Mr. Howell's claims because I'm not familiar with whose easement it is exactly. Sometimes there's multiple easements that follow our easements, or regardless of that, maybe manager's office or the engineer's office can speak to the construction people down there and possibly do something to move the line that might help preserve the trees.
And at a minimum, if they're on county roads or on township roads, and but at a minimum, if there is an easement there that they're entitled obviously to dig under it, I think you raise a good point, Mr. Howell, in that we should at least have a conversation about them replacing trees if there's no other alternative to removing the ones they're removing. So that has not occurred to me, and I will actually absolutely do that tomorrow.
Can we act on that opening business tomorrow and
Yes.
maybe even have someone go down there and ask them if they would halt the operation until you've had an opportunity to have that discussion? Okay.
They
Good.
start at 6 a.m. So by
Yeah.
by 8:30, they're allowed by.
I thought it's
ordinance.
7 a.m.
No, 6
We-
a.m.
6?
We have we actually have a contact in our office, so we'll
It is 7? Okay.
we'll reach out to the contact
Okay.
when I get in tomorrow.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
And the other question I had was more for Bill. Last year, when New Jersey American ran the water lines all the way up Ramtown Greenville Road, down Newton's Corner Road, and then the pavement started to crack and blister within weeks, it was going to be repaired. And it was supposed to be done this summer. I'm wondering where we are with that.
It's a good question.
I personally went with the representative from New Jersey American and my inspector. We walked the entire run. We looked at all the inspection reports, and we do have a comprehensive punch list of repairs that still are outstanding. And as far as that job's concerned, it is still on a maintenance bond that we would, if need be, Mr. Gannon can certainly call it in.
What his point, I think you're getting at, is that there's no school right now. This is the time to do it. In about another month and a half,
the
it'll be
first week
school.
of August, there's no school and there's no camp and there's no summer school.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 weeks in August are when you don't have to have school buses adding an extra 15 minutes to a trip.
So maybe a phone call, Tom, to make sure that they actually consider doing it right now.
Could your offices maybe work that out, and if Mr. Gannon needs to get involved and place a reminder and get them out there, we can get on that right away?
And then finally, with all of the construction now on Memorial Drive, there is a lot more truck traffic, obviously, on Newton's Corner Road. I own a business that's located on Newton's Corner Road, where the speed limit changes from 35 to 25, right at the intersection of Newton Corner and Ramtown Greenville Road. I would believe every truck coming down there is engine braking. There's no signs along that entire length of road, hey, don't do this. So windows rattle. I'm wondering if we could have a sign placed in that area that don't do this. You know, we see a ton of trucks going in and out of
The houses are shaking apart, is basically what you're saying?
Mr. Malava, do you have a comment, sir?
No, I was just going to say that I've also heard the same complaint that Mr. Howell's raising, excuse me, from the local businesses, actually, where they say that when the trucks come down that road, because of the change of speed, they're forced to jam on the brakes or whatever there is that they have to do, and they actually feel it. They feel that the windows vibrate in their businesses, specifically the Quail Creek shopping plaza there. So I don't know that there's anything that we can do, but I'll leave it up to...
Mr. Chernetsky, can you speak to traffic safety about whether or not in the traffic code there is a sign that can be posted to accommodate this issue?
Yeah, I suspect Councilman Malave is right, that it's not something that's enforceable, but, you know, they are under contract with us, so we can communicate with them that we're getting these complaints.
Well, we have an ordinance against engine braking, and there are signs already throughout the town that say that this is an ordinance.
I will look into it.
Okay.
Good.
Sounds like we need more signage.
You do have ordinances that, the only caveat is you got to make sure you can't have truck braking that might result in a traffic hazard, because sometimes, you know, they need to do that to avoid.
Of course.
But Mike's right, there is something on the books with regard to that. So maybe we
the
can
two
enforce that.
takeaways are, if we've had Mr. Chernetsky, we continue to give this guy praise. He's going to be asking us for a raise before you know it. But anytime there's been a resident's concern on Memorial Drive, to his credit, we've been on it. We've mandated they put in porta-johns. We've mandated they put up temporary construction fencing. We've put up signs. We've called in the contractors. So measures have been taken. Every time there's been a complaint valid from a resident, we've acted on them, and this is the latest on there. So if we can have a discussion with the contractor, we'll do it. If a sign can be had, I'm sure that we'll get it done.
Yep. And finally, maybe what we could do is from that four-way intersection where the traffic light's going to go, it's a total of about a quarter of a mile where the speed limit is 35. Maybe if we just make it 25 for that quarter mile, then the entire length of Newton's Corner Road from that four-way stop would be one speed instead of three.
Could not agree more, Mr. Howell. We have had conversation at the time through Mr. Davis about having that entire length be made 25. The police have looked in it a few times. We've gotten different updates from time to time about it. Mr. Chernetsky, if maybe you could resurface this issue with traffic safety and Sergeant Markulik about, can we revisit this, and maybe there's new evidence to suggest that the limit could be changed from 35 to 25. How it is in 25 already is very disturbing, but
It's only that one quarter mile stretch
Well,
that's
even
35.
if you couldn't do it permanently, aren't there rules around construction where you can temporarily reduce speed limits because construction's going on, like you see on the Turnpike or the Parkway, whatever,
Yeah.
all the time, and you're in speed limit 45 for the next 3 miles or whatever.
I'll investigate
good.
that.
We'll check them all out.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Howell. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Lariah, you had wanted to talk about 9C3. Are we good?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lariah. Mr. Magid, welcome, sir.
Okay.
Come on up. Nice to see you.
Again. Make sure I'm okay without the tan. All right, this is Abe Magid, 89 Mariners Cove, you know.
Good evening, Mr. Magid.
A little while ago, I said that it's a great township. It's hot, in addition to being a safe township. Well, certainly 11th in the nation. And I've heard a lot of business here tonight, which has to do with very current and important things. And last time I spoke about the present and the significant future, maybe for many years. And you gentlemen will still be on the board, maybe not. And the concern I have is the thinking that's going to go into the master plan. Now, I just have a little thing momentarily in your column, Mayor DeBello. Howell Times, July 14th. What is the status of the master plan? Planning board concluded its hearings and so on. Might just say a couple of little underlines is designed with great public input and thoughtful consideration. In other words, I'm going to assume you're going to do a lot of considering. One thing is a little puzzling. It says a blueprint designed to slow single-family resident growth, among other things. Well, that single-family thing, you can have, as they have now, a house for almost $1 million, $800,000. You can also have much smaller and therefore lower radiables. In fact, I noticed that, if I'm right here, ML7 is 7 units would be, I assume that's Mount Laurel, might be as much as 400 acres. I don't know. I don't want to get into numbers. But I do want to say this. Again, well, I'll just say, R50 is 8 units, which I would take to be, I'm here, which I take to be smaller ratables, maybe condominiums. By the way, speaking of condominiums, people can live in condominiums because they're very short of money in today's, my house. I had the guy come over. He says, yeah, it's going to be like assisted $400,000. Wow, okay. Was $150,000 not that many years ago. But it's not my house. I'm talking the whole general thing we have to consider here. Now, it's true. There's things called concept of baby boomers might like nice condominiums. Fine. Make it an adult community. Make it, an R5. Have to be very careful here on designators. Now, I'm going to ask what they call a blushing bride question of you, Mayor. I was given to understand that when the planning board came up with the master plan, essentially, a great deal was fait accompli, and I would like to ask you now, since you say you're going to try for the residents of this township, and by the way, the assessor was, for the new thing was over, and concurrently with the same day, I got my increase of $500 for the present one. It's going to be a lot more afterward. Why am I talking about myself? Because, I could be a poster boy for the rest of the residents. What's the difference? I want to ask you this, Mayor, and I guess I need a pretty opposite, a specific kind of answer. What are the powers when the planning board says, okay, this is the master plan, now it comes to you? For example, could you take the number of acres involved in R50, which is 8 units per acre, and reduce it substantially, not trim off one? I could say other things, even, in terms of whatever they are. What I'm asking you now is, you're telling me, what is the power of the council and the mayor to significantly auger it toward, as you say, we're not talking just single family, where you have, I'm not going to read this nomenclature, it's pretty obvious, where you have houses that'll be, 800,000, million, so on, versus whatever a condominium might be, I don't know, 200,000, so on. I just want to say this. These are very turbulent times, and I'm not trying to be dramatic. Until fairly recently, about a year ago, I enjoyed being at a kiosk in Monmouth Mall and over in Freel Western Mall. People saw me, outfit called Kitchen Magic. I was having a ball. It's a fabulous thing. And I did find out from many people who came by, you give out a balloon because there's a child with a stroller and so on, and it's a business, that they're either renting or saving enough money to squeezed himself into some, they said they can't afford these, what are called one-family houses. I mean, separately, on a lot. And this is what they call, what is it, the H.G. Wells, something of the shape of things to come. We're headed for more of this. So I'm going to ask you again, what is the power that you have here?
Let me answer first.
So that, and I really would need a very clarified answer, not, well, gee whiz, why, this and that.
I'll be very specific when you're ready.
Yeah, I want to know the power that you have, since you're saying you're going to put in a lot of thoughtful consideration. It's great to think, but what is the power that you have to alter these
gotcha.
designated areas?
Mr. Tabasco had asked to
Go.
give a response for you.
I will answer this first by saying, again, when we three who are sitting here right now campaigned 4 years ago, one of our objectives, let me finish.
I have four things you said, and they're wonderful.
Let me finish, Abe. It's my turn now.
Okay, wrote them down.
One of the things we said and ran on and campaigned on was that we were going to empower the committees. And what we meant by that was we were going to set policies and let them know what those policies were and let those committees come with advice to us.
Yes.
And then unless there was some outstanding reason why we shouldn't go with that advice, we were just going to take it and put that forward. So now to directly answer your question,
Yes.
we as a council have complete power to do whatever we want, but we still, based on what we ran on several years ago and what we've been doing indeed, have not really gone against anything that's been coming to us all 3.5 years we've been here. We wanted that to be that way. We want to motivate the committees that work for us that they're actually valuable. And
Peter.
still are. Let me finish.
Okay.
I'm almost finished.
Right.
All right, so the direct answer to your question is we have the power to do absolutely whatever we want. So this whole hearing is completely different from the master plan hearing. It's completely different from the subcommittee hearing. But in reality, would we go against what has been debated for 12 years? And when we go against an objective that we established 4 years ago that we were going to empower committees, the answer to that is no. There's been tremendous debate on almost every one of those things that are now coming to us in ordinance already. So if there's some outstanding exception to what we think makes common sense, we might actually debate it still. But that still doesn't mean we would necessarily go against the recommendation that's been given to us by all of these committees.
Okay. To pass this prologue, what took place for 12 years with the master plan, or whatever you have, you gave me a complete answer called Fiddler on the Roof on this hand and that. For this reason, I heard what you said about setting guidelines and committees act.
Correct.
Yes, I know I'm correct. Now, what you didn't say to me is, and I want it repeated again, if information is produced to you, to this council, to demonstrate that the residents of this township and for years to come, tax-wise, because of property evaluations, meaning small and large. And I want to ask you again, I don't care that you've given me your thoughts and philosophies here. I want this specifically answered.
I'm not sure if I understood your question.
Well, I'm going to know. I haven't put it forth.
Okay, all right, what's the question?
If information is brought to you, hard information, for example, in the present time, not in the past 10 years, if condominiums and townhouses are what they call throughout producing a great many children for school age, or if you haven't really had enough adult communities with no children, I want to know, and I didn't want your comments about what are the niceties that you gave them guidelines, because somewhere you threw in a no. And I hope that no is not predicated on if you're given hard information that tax-wise, for in the years to come, We don't say things about holding back single family. $800,000 houses, come on down. Condominiums, and I don't mean baby boomers, adult type, adult is fine. Fancy condominiums that people can afford. I want you now to tell me this again, Peter, after you've given me all this. I haven't taken that long. People have taken a long time.
No, I wasn't going to get into that.
All
I
right.
was going to give you an answer.
No. Peter said something. I want it from him.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Sure.
I'm waiting for you to get to your question.
All right. I want to know again. Not again, the pastor's prologue. If those are presented to you, what do you have the power, for example, to so reduce an R50 of 8 units per acre if you chose to, substantially, and at the same time look to increase perhaps the areas designated for any of the, AR3s and so on?
Would you, if you don't mind, Deputy Mayor, I'm going to give you 5 points, which I think will give you
Great.
very specific answers. First and foremost is that under New Jersey's municipal land use law, there is a specific time parameter upon which every township must go through a re-examination of its master plan. And that is a requirement under state law that towns go through that to determine how they want to plan for the future of their community. And the municipal land use law sets around certain parameters of how towns need to address all kinds of issues: residential issues, commercial issues, industrial uses, open space, farmland, et cetera, et cetera. So before a town can take any action, there needs to be an exploration around the appropriate uses of its community. And there are very specific guidelines that must be met. We had a planner that we hired through the planning board to lead us through that process so that the planning board would examine the entire township, growth expectations, how we could best manage the community. And they've gone through that process. The planning board held probably the equivalent of about 10 months' worth of meetings on those issues. And all those meetings were open to the public through the master plan process. And we had hearings along the way as we were to determine a particular area of the town, or if we were going to entertain making a change to a highway zone and what may be permitted there. So there was a long public participation process. And after the board went through this state-required set of criteria, it finished its master plan re-examination, and it listened to the public. And then the planning board creates this homogeneous report, and it says to the mayor and the council, we've gone through, we've listened to the public, we've understand projections about the township and where it would like to go, and we're giving you these set of recommendations for your consideration to contain residential growth, to promote economic prosperity, whatever it may be. To your point about taxes, specific in the municipal land use law, the planning board is prohibited by New Jersey law from taking into consideration financial implications of development. For example, the planning board cannot say the reason to create the XYZ zone is because it'll bring in tax revenue. There is a specific prohibition in the law that prohibits the planning board from taking those things into consideration. So the planning board goes through their process. The other issue, to your point, is New Jersey's municipal land use law also specifically mentions that there should be specific attention paid toward senior housing. It's right in the municipal land use law. And so all of those things got taken into consideration by the planning board. They've given the report to the mayor and council. So now what we're going to do is we have to take that report of recommendations. We're going to go through it. We're going to go through it section by section. And in fact, at our last council meeting, we went through, for example, something known as design standards, how we can hopefully regulate and create a culture for Route 9, for example. And then it was introduced tonight. So we have a schedule of all of the major aspects of the planning board's recommendations, and we are going to open that process up to the entire community, piece by piece, to welcome and solicit input as we go through each one of those parameters. Now, Deputy Mayor is right. We've empowered the planning board to make recommendations of best practices, having listened to the public. So now we're going to hear the public again. To your question, if someone comes to us with hard factual information, and as we're hearing these ordinances, and we listen to it and say, you know what? We understand what the planning board's recommendation was, but we've heard from the members of the public, we've got new information. Perhaps we don't want to make that particular change. It is totally and completely within the authority of the mayor and council as a collective body to implement those laws as we see fit, based on evidence from the planning board, testimony given to the planning board, their recommendations, and new testimony that will be given to us here in these chambers as we go through public hearings on every single aspect of the plan. And so we are in the midst of that process now. We have that authority to answer your question. We welcome input from people. We want to hear new facts so that when all is said and done, we will have had a thoughtful process before we finalize the plan.
All right, you spoke quite at length. Let's see if I can condense down what you said to see if I actually received an answer. And it goes like this. All the complexities of highways and other things is off the table for my discussion. You also said, and I heard it at the only planning board meeting I attended, because at that time I was told, in fact, probably by the chairman, not to me, it was said in general, the very thing that you said, that they are not allowed to consider the question of property taxes in their plan. They said that specifically, and you repeated it just now. And now that's why I asked you that question. If you are going to consider the hard data, it's going to go like this. Ratables, such as condominiums and probably townhouses, and the number of children they are producing currently, not 10 years ago, currently, for the taxes that they pay, and I had it, the cost per child, 10,000, will not even begin to cover it, even, you know, with whatever the state kicks in. Whereas a house that has a rateable for 800,000 or so will go far more to cover it. Were you to see these facts, and in the interest, as you say, thoughtful consideration, and not just the word hold back single family, because again, there's a very big difference between 800,000 and a $200,000 rateable, or whatever it is, would you then be in a position for the benefit economically in this community? And I might add, just where I live, in Moore's Landing and Admiral's Row, suddenly almost have sprouted up, could be a coincidence, about 8 houses for sale, and people are worried about whether they can pay their taxes with the reevaluation. Okay, and that's going to proceed. So I ask you again, in view of the fact that you said the planning board could not take that into account, in your consideration for the needs economically of the people in Howell Township, are you empowered to say, no, we'll have less of these lower rateable multiple units and more, if we can, of these for higher ratables? Now, you gave me a lot of language.
Here's the simple answer.
Yes.
Yes.
You're on record. Yes. Okay? Now, I want to ask, no, that's very good, because you have a power here.
I'm one vote.
No. When I say you,
One of 5.
it's in the plural. It's in the plural. It's in the plural. Like in Spanish, tu and vu or whatever, you know, multiple. So. High school, what can I remember?
You're killing us.
A classmate of mine from high school, Mrs. Swinticki, remember
Unos, dos,
Spanish
tres,
girl?
cuatro, cinco, that's all I remember. I passed all the tests, didn't matter. Walked out in the street and forgot it all. I graduated, went to college, all this kind of stuff. All right, practical. Like, what you're saying is that this council, if it's shown to you that ratables are a significant thing when it comes to the economic survival in years to come in this master plan, that you can do the thing by state law or whatever guidelines you have to follow, which the planning board announced they could not Are you telling me you can do that?
Yes.
Shalom Aleichem.
Nice to see you, Mr. Magid.
Fantastic.
Have a good
And,
night.
When does, have you an idea, I know we're talking about the Route 9, which is a great thing, you know, I love it. But in terms of the first phase of the actual residential, when will that come up before the board?
Can you give us the schedule, Mr. Chernetsky?
Well, we did review that a couple weeks ago. We decided that we
Right.
wanted to knock out the design standards and the hotel ordinance and the height
Good.
issue right away.
What's next?
Mr. Newcomb, do you remember, I don't have the sheet
Okay.
in front of me. But
There's 13 other sections of
Just
recommendations.
what's the next one coming up, so we can
Well,
invite Mr. Magid back?
Possibly could be the definition of density,
Okay.
you know, the one that we.
Here's a recommendation. Mr. Magid, we have your address here. Could we, Mr. Chernetsky, maybe drop in the mail to Mr. Magid the order we're going to take these in?
Yes.
And then he'll
Well,
know.
that's on the website,
And
uh,
density
Good.
would be
That's
just
put it
what
on the
I'm
website.
talking about.
Seems
Okay.
like that's next.
Ma-
Great.
Mayor,
Thanks,
if I
Mr.
can-
Magid.
if I
I
can,
actually gave Mr. Magin the list.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
wait,
you
He
got
has
it.
the list.
No,
Okay.
I have. I spoke with Chuck today. No, this is not what I'm talking.
No, he's talking about the, you
I
gave him the order
last
of,
week when I emailed him last week, I emailed the changes that, you know, the townships.
Yeah,
It's
no,
basically-
I have that. I have that. No,
There you
no.
go. That's-
No.
that's the
Now,
order
I
we're
want to
gonna
know
take
when
them.
the meeting will be for that discussion. That's what I
they
want.
will be done only at town council meetings.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So we'll make sure we get you a schedule
Yes,
when
so-
we anticipate the months.
one more, as per council's direction, I just want to note that the map of where the changes are going to happen is on our website.
Great.
There's a button on the left on the homepage that says maps. And there's also a PDF file. It doesn't have the names of the resident, but it has your block and lot
Awesome.
for throughout town, and it'll show you you're going from a particular zone to another zone, if you indeed are affected. So our next step, as we go through, now we're going to post the design standards on that site, and then after that, the first set of ordinances that come through with an explanation of the policy direction it's recommended will appear as we deal with them.
Okay.
But I'll be notified, say, a week or so before of when we start talking about the thing I'm talking about. I don't know, is it a month away, or more than a month away?
We'll get you the schedule. I don't
Yeah,
know that
we
we're in a
don't know
position to know
exactly,
that
yeah.
yet, so they'll get you a schedule
Yeah,
as soon as
as
we
soon-
got
yeah,
one.
gotcha.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mr.
Very
Magid.
good. Thank
Mr. Brannan, welcome, sir. Come on up.
So before he gets up, I just want to say one thing to the public out there. 3 of the 5 sitting council members right now have served on the planning board and have gone through great pains and lengthy debate to get to where we're at now. So I will repeat what we said before. We have a separate body of jurisdiction through the planning board, and they went through a lot of pains to get these recommendations to us. So unless there's some unusual exception, I don't imagine we're going to really go against what we actually participated in.
Good. Mr. Brannan, welcome, sir. Give us your name and address officially for the record, please.
Jack Brannan, 16 Woodland Drive. Good evening again.
Good evening.
Just want to really state something. I've been very vocal about a number of issues up here. And I base some of what I said on possibly some bad information in newspapers, meaning some of the things that were said, even by me, about Howell, Little League North. I was not at the last meeting, but I did watch it on TV. And I think the resolution of the issue is fair and equitable for everybody to live with.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
And I want to thank the, powers who be over here who came up with a resolve for it.
Thank you.
And again, I just wanted to state that. Second, I think Mr. Chernetsky, after watching his presentation on TV, the man's a find. And don't let him go. Okay.
Your hat size went up a couple the last couple months.
His professionalism, speaks for itself. The third thing, paving on some roads. I know during the budget process, I think there was an issue brought up that they might be buying a new paving box.
A hot box, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hot box. That's why I was just trying to.
We're not.
You're not.
No.
Is there currently one functional in the town?
Mr. Nunziato, would you want to respond?
Yes, there is one. We were going to get a second one. That's sort of for pothole repair.
Right. Can they, our neighborhood specifically, Mr. Chinesky walked our neighborhood a few months ago.
Rustic Drive and
Woodland,
Woodland, okay.
Crest area. There's some areas of road that are literally deteriorating to dirt at this point. Is there a way they could possibly just patch given areas of road with the box, short sections, maybe not even 100 yards long, maybe, 60, 70, 80 feet, so it just literally doesn't turn into dirt at this point? I'm asking. If it can't be
course.
done, I understand that too, but.
Gentlemen, you want to respond to Mr. Brown?
I think, in fairness to the new DPW director, I don't want to commit anything at this point, but I think, it is frustrating to drive around the town and to see these neighborhoods that aren't necessarily dense, that don't have a lot of traffic, and therefore don't necessarily raise to the level of a traffic safety priority, but indeed the roads are deteriorating. And we need to do something about it. So indeed we're making this investment. Obviously we want to put that equipment to use, but we do have a new public works director on board, and I want to give that gentleman every opportunity to craft a policy. So if you would just give us an opportunity to just get our bearings before I respond.
It's just quickly deteriorating.
I would say the one thing that the study that we did, I looked at it a little further, and I think it's something we need to take into account that the study didn't, is what happens to quality of life in the neighborhoods where these roads get to this point. And I have to tell you, I've been dispatched over the past few weeks to numerous, neighborhoods that are like this. So the study didn't look. The study focused on safety, volume, that sort of thing, but it didn't really address quality of life, impact on property values, that sort of thing. So I think perhaps next year when we make a recommendation, we need to exercise a little bit of judgment beyond that report. We need to fine-tune it to reflect some realities.
I mean, I know we've got in our budget a massive investment in road improvements. I know we also have some dollars set aside for, obviously, repairs and potholes and what have you. Could we potentially, I know we've been there, maybe you can just send a quick email on the streets where we have the gravest situation, because to the credit of the Department of Public Works, I must get an email a day, Mr. Chernetsky, you see them all, at least, on a serious note,
for the whole road.
from people about potholes.
Maybe
So-
patch this one section and patch that one section. And
So why don't we, if you don't mind, I'm sure you got my email, you can go to the town website and click on it. Just send us the things that you've witnessed that are the worst ones, and let's see if we can go out and do some intermediary repair work so that we don't have a real problem on our hands.
And to Bill's credit and department's credit, I do want to say that when it comes to a pothole, we're there on top of the pothole. It's just
Absolutely.
the road consists of pothole fixes after
the
all.
whole road is
potholes.
deteriorated to
You're right.
It's really a safety issue for some of the kids that ride the bikes in the neighborhood at this point.
We got it. Okay. If you do that, that'd be a big help to
No
us.
problem. I'll
Thank
even
you.
attach a photograph for you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Nice to see you. Nathan Muselli. Mr. Muselli, welcome, sir.
Oh, did he wait the whole night for some completely different issue?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. If you just give us your name and address for the record.
I'll be quick. Nathan Maselli. I'm here on behalf of St. Alexander Nevsky Russian Orthodox Cathedral. It's 200 Alexander Ave.
Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you. I'm here basically just to advise the council that we are currently in the planning stages. I've sent, actually, a member of our clergy sent out an email and also a letter to yourself, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council members regarding a festival that we are planning for September 17th. It's going to be a Russian cultural festival. It's going to be held on the grounds of our cathedral, 200 Alexander Ave there. And I'm here, first of all, to request your permission and the council's permission to have this festival. And I'd like to preface that by saying that we are currently, and I'm working very closely with Judy and the clerk's office and the land use office, sure that we have all our permits in place, all our legal requirements are in place. Chief of Police has already signed off on their social affairs permit. So that's the main reason why I'm here tonight. Second reason is also pending your approval is to also invite yourself, every member of the council.
That's terrific.
and Township residents.
Well, we
to
appreciate
attend.
that. Ms. Woolman, I'm not certain if you were involved in this from the clerk's office or not, but is there anything else do you know whether their group may or may not need to do? Okay. I think we've got your contact information here. Mr. Chinessi, I'm going to pass this back to you, and if we could just check over any of the approval stuff and
Yes.
whatever else might be outstanding.
Well,
we'll-
just one quick question. Will there be pierogies?
Yes.
How about Grumpkies?
Yes, well,
Oh,
there'll
boy.
be that and Russian beer as well. So please.
Yeah.
But some of the, like I said, some of the permits are not completed yet. One of the permits actually you voted on tonight was the raffle license. That's already, and I was actually at the land use office today regarding we're putting up a tent regarding a tent permit or inspections regarding that.
Terrific.
We'll see where this stands in terms of the next agenda. perhaps. See-
We'd appreciate
see what
that.
we need to get it ready.
Any help we can be, we'd be delighted to do so. Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Appreciate the invitation. Okay, that closes the public portion of the meeting. Mr. Janetsky, is there any other business we need to act on tonight, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, we have our next regular public participation meeting on Tuesday, August the 8th, 7:30 in these chambers. We have our regular meeting on Tuesday, August the 15th, beginning at 6:30 with executive session, 8 p.m. public portion here in these chambers. Hearing no other business, motion to adjourn.
So move, Mayor.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Safe night, everybody.